I suppose you think you raised hell.
Sister, when I've raised hell, you'll know it.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where I'm very happy to announce that we are deep in the season of the Coen Brothers. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Rocha. I'm a writer, producer, host, and voiceover actor here in San Diego, California. And Steve, I'm also quite excited that we are in the season of the Coen Brothers. You know, I love these seasons that we do on the show, and I love that we get to spend some more time really going in deep with these incredible artists and creatives and rediscovering the magic of their work. And certainly these two brothers are some of the most amazing filmmakers of the last, 4 decades? It's incredible what they've been able to do. And this is one of my top favorite movies that we're going to be discussing here over the next 2 parts.
Right. And the movie we're going to talk about is Miller's Crossing. But before we do, we should say that the most important thing you can do to support the Cine-Files is by going to either patreon.com/thecine-files, where you can listen to ad-free versions of their show, all sorts of other stuff like our Cine-Files shorts, our watch-alongs, and our advisory board, or you can go to Apple Podcasts, which also has our shorts and ad-free versions of the show, and that's at patreon.com/thecine-files.
Yeah, another way you can help our show, and really a big way you can help our show, is to make sure you patronize the clients who support us here on the show and the people who are very kind to have run their ads on our show to support everything we do. When you look at these ads, you'll hear them throughout the course of the show here. We got BetterHelp, who's been helping us out for a little while. We got Hims. We got True Diagnostics. So quite a lot of great clients who are supporting the Cine-Files. And I know sometimes you guys go past the ads or maybe you don't listen to the ads. But if you are listening to the ads and you like some of those products, please don't hesitate to use our code. It's so important to show these clients and these sponsors that you all want to use their products and you support them supporting our show. And that's a great thing for all of us.
Absolutely. And now the film we're talking about is Miller's Crossing. And John, I think even before we started doing this podcast, I knew that this was a special movie to you. And I am very, very curious to find out both how you came to the film and why does it hold such a special place in your heart?
Well, I think it's about timing, isn't it, in life? And I think I came along at a time when the independent film movement in the late 80s into the 90s was becoming a thing. And so there were all these creatives that were bubbling below the surface that would occasionally pop up with films. There were all these movie magazines that were coming out during the 80s and 90s. And so you were hearing about filmmakers. And so I went to see Raising Arizona, just like as you did, Steve. We talked about it, and it was an incredible experience. And so immediately the Coen brothers were on my radar. And then when they talked about Miller's Crossing, this is also a time, right, when I'm 20, I think, when this film comes out, when I am becoming a cinephile and devouring films on VHS from the movie store and learning and reading and discovering what great film means and what it's all about. And when I saw this trailer, as a person who had loved classic films and watched classic films on TV, grew up watching them as a kid, this spoke my language, a modern take on a gangster 1920s gangster type story. And so for me, I could not wait to see this movie. I don't think I knew Gabriel Byrne. I don't think I knew Marca Gay Harden. I certainly didn't know Jon Polito at the time. So all of this was new to me. John Torturro, I think I'd known because of Do the Right Thing or whatever before this film came out. So I knew I had to see this film. So I went opening day by myself to see this movie. And then I think I went subsequently with friends later on when they would do reprisals of it. And I was just blown away by this film. And there are certain things, look, there's a certain amount of arrogance that comes with being a cinephile in that you discover the gem and you only respect people who discover the gem as well. And you savor them so much when they understand how great a movie was. And this used to be my litmus test for friends, this film, Miller's Crossing. If you loved Miller's Crossing, you were my tribe. You were part of my tribe. We were together in a tribe. I respected you and your opinion on movies. And so this movie became this calling card for me, eminently quotable. And one of the greatest friendships of my life is a friend of mine named Clay, named Clay Major, and Clay and I. This is a film we bonded over constantly when we worked at bookstores and did. You know how nerdy people do Monty Python and Holy Grail or do those kinds of quotable movies. For us, this was the quotable movie, the end all be all, and it was just a great combination of fantastic actors, such a unique story, and a delivery of an homage to those 1920s gangster films that completely worked. And my love for this film has never stopped. And rewatching it again in 2K on the new Criterion version of this was a whole nother experience in savoring this film from top to bottom.
It's so funny because for some reason, for me, I'd seen, as we talked about in our episode on the Coen Brothers, I'd seen Raised in Arizona, loved it, watched it over and over and over again. I think I had gone back and rented the VHS of Blood Simple sometime in the early 90s.
Oh, yeah.
I saw Hudsucker Proxy right in the theater when it came out.
Yeah.
But I didn't see Miller's Crossing.
Wow.
I missed it. And I it's you were a reader of like movie magazines, which I really wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
And so even though I love movies, it was just sort of, I wasn't just that aware of it. And it was when I got to film school and my good friend, Matt Garcia, when I told him exactly what I just said to you, said, wait a minute, you haven't seen Miller's Crossing? We have to watch that tonight. And there's another thing I want to talk about in my first experience of seeing Miller's Crossing, which is something that I don't know that we've ever brought up in the 9 years of the Cine-Files, which is this big, round, weird, flat thing called a laser disc. We haven't talked about this very much, but if you're younger than us and you grew up in the post-DVD world, or definitely in the post-HD world, you didn't realize how fucking terrible the world of renting movies was, or watching movies was, because we had these 4x3 TVs, which were the wrong shape for most of the movies we loved, which means that the films were pan and scanned. So they moved the camera around to keep people in the center of the frame. Otherwise, they'd be off on the outside of the TV. And the resolution was terrible, and the transfers are terrible. And right after I got to film school, I bought my first Laserdisc player.
Ooh.
And it was a fucking revelation. And I would bring people over, and I would take, and I use Jaws usually, is I would show them, here's the VHS of this scene of Jaws, where you see the camera moving all around to keep things in frame. And here's the gorgeous wide framing where you see it perfectly done. And so the first time that I saw Miller's Crossing, we had rented it on Laserdisc and sat in my apartment in Los Angeles in Mid-Wilshire and watched that thing. And it blew my fucking mind. And it was so great. It was one of those moments where I already knew that I loved the Coen Brothers, because I had watched Raising Arizona, I'd watched Hudsucker, Blood Simple, I'd watched Barton Fink I had seen before I saw Miller's Crossing. And I was like, oh, these are the guys. And then, and in particular, there's one sequence in this movie, which is among my favorite sequences in any movie ever of all time, period. And it absolutely blew me away. And seeing it widescreen, Laserdisc, was so great at that time.
Yeah, I could not afford a Laserdisc at those times in growing up, but I had friends who had Laserdisc players. So I would like create reasons to go over to their houses and try to talk them into playing Laserdiscs and just scenes or whatever, and sitting there and watching them. I remember that all the way up to my first year in college at Florida State. My friend Rain's car had a Laserdisc player, and I would go to his apartment, his little tiny apartment that he had there on campus, and we would sit and watch Laserdiscs. So I absolutely understand what you're saying. And it's amazing now that we've gotten to the point where you can buy 4K movies for like $20 or $15, and you get legitimately the same experience on a TV that you can afford, that is flat screen and 4K, with audio equipment you can afford that is like 5.1 surround. It's amazing the experience you can have now at home with these movies. And of course, they don't mirror what you would feel in a theater, but certainly it comes close to that experience. And it's like
pretty good. I mean,
it's a great way to see it.
Yeah. So that was my first experience. The movie blew me away, and I just like to jump into the pre-production. I don't have a ton. They were working on the screenplay. It was initially titled Big Head, because that was their nickname for the character of Tom. And it's so funny. And I've read this, we've heard this a lot about the Coen Brothers, and it's true of me too, that sometimes you're movie can start from a completely random thing, and you'll just like, there's something there. And for them, it started with the image of a black hat coming to rest in a forest clearing, and then a gust of wind comes and it blows the hat down an alley of trees. And that's all they have. They just have this image in their head, and that leads them to writing this script, which they work on for a while very intensely until they hit writer's block. When this is what the Coen Brothers do is they go, okay, we can't figure out what to do. We don't know what the story is. We don't know where we're going. Let's take a break. Hey, there's a new movie starring Diane Keaton called Baby Boom. Let's watch Baby Boom. And they watch that, and that gives them an idea for a different movie, which they sit down and knock out in 3 weeks. And that movie is Barton Fink.
Yeah.
And then it's Barton Fink. After finishing Barton Fink, they go back to working on Miller's Crossing. And I'm going to defer to you because my sense is you know much more about this film than I do. But we're getting towards the end of my pre-production. I know they had several weeks of rehearsal.
They did.
I know that they shot in New Orleans, but they didn't necessarily want it to say that they were shooting in New Orleans.
Right.
And I also know that the two movies they watched over and over again with their DP Barry Sonnenfeld to prepare for this, and it sounds like they watched these movies a lot to prepare for other movies, were Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove and The Conformist. And we have now reached really the end of my pre-production. So John, what do you have to add before we jump in?
Well, I mean, I think the reason the Criterion disc is so good, and I would highly, highly encourage anyone who hasn't got it yet to get it whenever the new sale happens, is you have these great 2021 interviews with the Coen brothers about the movie, specifically about the movie, and with Gabriel Byrne and John Torturro sitting down in 2021 to talk about this movie. There's also conversations with Carter Burwell, the production designer, Barry Sonnenfeld, who you don't see on screen, but he talks about experience. It is a great way to savor and understand how this movie came to be. And Steve, you're right. There's so much that was involved here with the writer's block. That's why the hotel is called Barton Arms in the movie. It's an homage to Barton Fink. And they had a lot of trouble putting this thing together, but they were very inspired, the Coen brothers, by noir films and like B and C level noir films. Those are the things that really came to them as they were creating the film, writing the script and creating what they wanted the world of the film to be. And I love that they stuck to it. And the idea of doing a film like this probably was very difficult to pitch at the time, and yet they were still able to create something like this. The negative part about the movie is that it came out at the same time as Goodfellas, which is why I think you missed it and so many people missed it, because it didn't do that well at the box office, is because people were caught up in the Goodfellas type of thing and didn't want to have double gangster type of approach. So some film executive probably thought, oh, if they like Goodfellas, they'll like this. We'll take advantage of it, instead of letting them both breathe separately and what have you. But there was so much in them coming together and writing this thing and being inspired by Dashiell Hammett's writing, by the Raymond Chandler stuff. So there was so much involved here to put it all together. And so I just I'm very impressed with what they were able to do and exploring the terms. And I think they make up some of the terms. One of the things they said in the interviews is they wanted to use the term, what's the swing in your J? And it would, as a way of saying like, what's going on with you? And I was like, that is genius. Even the stuff they threw away would have been awesome to quote all these years later out of the movie if they had used it. So there was a lot of play. They clearly sensed that this film was important. They literally had to do it. Like, considering they took writer's block and wrote and shot a whole other film, then came back to this one, or wrote that film and came back to this one, because they knew there was something that was driving them to make this movie. And I think that's a great thing to consider with an artist. You know, when you have to get it out, you have to get it out. And clearly those two needed to get this film out of themselves.
Well, this is the thing. I can't tell you how many projects I've drifted away from or stopped on and come back to. And it's always funny. I know I've said this before, where people come up to me and say, hey, you need an idea for a movie? I got a great idea for a movie. And I'm always like, you think my problem is a lack of ideas? I have tons of unfinished things that I want to finish. I'm going to finish my idea before I'm going to start on your idea. But thank you very much for the suggestion.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I don't have a ton of pre-production. I have some casting stuff as we go along.
We'll get as we go along.
But would you like to get into Miller's Crossing?
Here we go. And I'll say this to you all. This is one of those films that, as Steve alluded to, every once in a while, there's a film that I supremely, supremely love. So I may talk too much. I may say too much. I may surrender too many facts. I apologize ahead of time. But because this is a film that is just a seminal film for me in my life. And so I'm so excited that we're doing it. And I'm excited to experience it with you, Steve, because this is one of those things that I have no idea what you think about the film or what you're going to say or what is going to stand out to you. So it's going to be just as much fun for me to experience that all over again, the film all over again with you as we go into this. But I'm just letting you know, this is one of those ones where I get super excited about a movie.
I think apologizing for being excited and passionate as we jump into a movie is a big mistake. I disagree. That's the best. That's why we do the show. I want to say one thing about this film, and I kind of feel it about the Coen Brothers in general, and I sort of hinted at it as when we were talking about their careers before, is that I keep coming back as I prep my notes and then I reread my notes and then I keep thinking about my notes, because what's weird about the Coen Brothers, I think, and I don't know if you'll agree, is that they are so precise.
Yes.
And everything is so clearly done exactly how they want it to be. And yet I keep going, wait, what does that mean exactly? What is that character actually really thinking? What is this moment really about? And I've never experienced the mix of absolutely surgical clarity with this odd layer of ambiguity, and that's where I keep going, because you get to the end of this movie, and obviously there's a ton we're going to talk about before we get there, and I go, wait, what is that? Like, what's happened here?
And I'll tell you, this last time watching it, and especially after having listened to the Coen Brothers talk about it, I have a completely different belief of what the ending of the movie means going forward for all the characters than I ever have before. And so that was something that was great to discover preparing for the show.
All right. So, John, shall we go visit Miller's Crossing?
Let's go. Let it dangle.
So the first thing we hear as we're in the black is we hear that clear sound of ice being dropped into a glass, and we hear in a very recognizable voice,
I'm talking about friendship. I'm talking about character.
I mean, what a coming out party for Jon Polito, an incredible actor who some of you may remember from Homicide. He played Detective Steve Cressetti for a couple of seasons on Homicide. And Phil Bartoli in the first season of Crime Story. You've seen him in The Rocketeer, The Crow, Gangster Squad. He was in 5 Coen Brothers movies along with this one: Barton Fink, Big Lebowski, Hudsucker Proxy, and The Man Who Wasn't There. And some of you may remember him from Remo Williams, and I think he's in The Green Mile. And another thing I discovered about him as a person, I did not know this, but Jon Polito was gay.
Oh, and I didn't know that either.
I did not know he was gay. And so I think he was married and had a partner for a very long time. So that was something that was fascinating to discover about this character, about him as an actor, because he's always played these guys that are really interesting guys that are caught up in thinking about things and the conundrums of things. And so there's a lot of similarities to what he does here in this movie and what he does in Homicide that I think are great to discover about this character actor. And Joel and Ethan both said that as soon as he came in and delivered the lines, he was the choice, even though they initially wanted him for the Dane. He campaigned to play Johnny Casper, and that's what they ended up giving him.
It's one of those, I know I said this when we mentioned it before, but it's one of those things of like, no, this is what actors do. Because when I heard him interviewed, as I'm looking at the behind the scenes, and I heard how he actually spoke and what he's actually like, I was like, he had completely convinced me that he's close to one of these guys, when obviously he's nothing like Johnny Casper at all.
Oh, Leo, I ain't embarrassed to use the word. I'm talking about ethics.
So I want to stop here.
Okay.
And the reason I want to stop here, first of all, as I'm watching it, I went, boy, this is very much related to the opening of The Godfather.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I saw that the Coen brothers have also said, yes, they were thinking of the opening of The Godfather. And The Godfather opens with, I believe in America. Right. And I believe that sentence, I believe in America, is central to the entire Godfather trilogy. The relationship between the Corleone family and what it means to be an American and success in American and judgment of their identity, all that stuff. It's right in the opening moment of the movie. And this line, he says, I'm talking about ethics. And I'm just going, ethics is central, whatever we mean by that word, to this entire film.
And I think when you watch the movie enough, kind of like Scott Mance tried to clue us into Edward James Olmos being the actual Blade Runner. In my opinion, Jon Polito in this movie is the actual hero. And he is the man who is constantly in this conundrum of ethics. He wants things to work in a certain way. And yes, it's kind of weird that he's like talking about a fix, and a fix should be, because that's cheating. But in his mind, he's trying to create a code of honor amongst criminals. And that these codes need to be followed in order for things to function properly and for people to succeed. But in a way, it's very similar to Idris Elba's character in The Wire. He is trying to create a code and a system and a hierarchy and a business type approach to the drug trade that eventually, if you watch the show, you know what happens. But he is trying to change the approach so that it actually has these things you can rely on. You could put 10 poles in the ground. And that's what Johnny Kaspar is talking about here right at the beginning. He's just saying that he's talking about friendship, he's talking about ethics, he's talking about these things that matter. And him saying, I'm not embarrassed to say it, which is something that we've probably told to be embarrassed, or people have made people look foolish for having ethics. And he's trying to say, like, this matters, this is important, this is what I want to see. Now, whether he's right or wrong to do that, I don't know. But certainly I feel like in the end, he's the guy that is following a better North Star than Leo or Tom or Vera or Bernie or Minkar or the Dane even in the entire film.
So I have so many thoughts about this. Sorry, I have so many thoughts. So the first thing I think is that, we're obviously 2 sentences into the movie. So I think we can, but again, no apologies for this. This is the Cine-Files. But here's the thing about this is, like, you take the guy who, in the way he is photographed, in the way that he sweats, in the way that his voice is, he seems to be, if we're just going to trust visuals, the least reputable person in the film. Leo is very stately, like Tom is very stately, like, but we're supposed to go like, oh, Johnny Casper's kind of a bad guy. But I agree with you. I actually think he is genuinely concerned about ethics. He spends a lot of time thinking about ethics and cares a lot about it. And here's the analogy I'll make, which is last year, we spent several months going over Shogun and talking about samurai culture. And in samurai culture, as presented in the James Clavell novel and in that miniseries, someone has told, you have embarrassed me, go out and kill your whole family, including your children.
Right.
And that, in that society, based on the way it's portrayed in that miniseries, is ethical, which seems entirely unethical from us. But I think it's a good analogy for this, because it's like, you can have a code and believe strongly in a particular code, even if that code is the code of criminals committing crimes.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
And this is the crime that he's talking about right now, because he says,
when I fix a fight, say I pay a 3-to-1 favor to throw a goddamn fight, I figure I got the right to expect that fight to go off at 3-to-1.
So this is the central problem of the movie, which is, if you fix a fight, the odds need to stay the same. If the odds get thrown off, someone is violating the rules.
Someone's messing with the fix.
Yeah. And just like in The Godfather, it's a slow camera push in on him as he's talking. We don't cut away to see who he's talking to.
But every time I lay in bed with a son of a bitch Bernie Birnbaum, before I know it, the odds is even up. Or worse, I'm betting on the short money. The Sheeny knows I like short things. He's selling the information. I fixed the fight.
I would like to just point out that as the Jewish co-host of this podcast, there will be many anti-Semitic monikers for the character of Bernie Birnbaum. The Cine-Files does not endorse these. We merely portray them as they are in the film.
Yes, and I have a glossary of terms for any of the things that we come across for this particular film, because some of you all may not know these terms and may want some information on them. Yeah,
it's funny. You and I clearly did the same thing. Of like, I did some searching of word origin for that particular one. Where does that one come from?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The point is, Bernie ain't satisfied with the honest dollar he can make off the victim. He ain't satisfied with the business I do on his book. He is selling tips on how I bet.
And then we cut to Albert Finney sitting in the chair listening to him. He plays Leo O'Bannon. Oh my God, is Albert Finney amazing in this movie?
Yeah. And Albert Finney, an English actor who debuted in The Entertainer back in 1960. He's known for being in Tom Jones, Two for the Road, Scrooge from 1970, Annie, of course, The Dresser, Man of No Importance, Aaron Brockovich, Big Fish, one of my favorite Tim Burton films, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, the Bourne series, Skyfall. He was nominated for 8 Golden Globes in his career, 10 BAFTAs, and was nominated for an Academy Award 5 times and Best Actor 4 times for Tom Jones' Murder on the Orient Express, The Dresser, and Under the Volcano, and then, of course, for Aaron Brockovich there as well, and received several awards for his performance as Winston Churchill in the BBC HBO series The Gathering Storm. The movie, The Gathering Storm. But he's the guy who played Henry V in 1950. He played Hamlet in 1960 and the 1970s. So there's a lot of pedigree with Albert Finney. And and I'm sure you have this information, Steve, was not their first choice to play Leo.
They were originally going to have Trey Wilson, who plays Nathan Arizona in Raising Arizona, play this part. And what's so crazy, here's the thing about it, is that what we see for the Coen Brothers throughout their entire career is if they like you, they're going to work with you again. Is that they really 100%. Care about their collaborators. They love that family of actors. They respect their family. They also really believe that their actors can play all sorts of different kinds of parts, which is amazing. And particularly if you watch Frances McDormand throughout her career or any of them, they play all sorts of different kinds of people. And so we see that Trey Wilson can play this, unfinished furniture dealership in this one movie who's sort of crass, and believe that he can play this gangster in this movie. And maybe he could have.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Trey Wilson passed away. I think it's just 2 or 3 days before they were supposed to start shooting. It was right before it, and he passed away unexpectedly.
Yes, and they cast Albert Finney, and he took the part. And the Coen Brothers said for almost nothing, flew across the world. I think he had 2 or 3 weeks of rehearsal, and then was on the set shooting this part. So that tells you the greatness of Albert Finney as an actor, that with very little preparation and very little heads up, he was able to come on to the set and deliver such an incredible character as Leo.
It really goes, again, I love that the Coen Brothers work with the people they work with and want them to do other kinds of roles. That is admirable as a director. I also go, I don't know how good an actor Trey Wilson is, to be frank. Like, I've seen him in a few things, but Albert fucking Finney. I mean, like that, it's just it's such a huge, I don't know how they got him. I mean, I don't know, maybe in the early 90s, he's not working that much at this point, but
maybe. Yeah.
The last minute to fly in to do a relatively low budget-ish movie. I mean, man, they scored.
And that means part of the payoff they should be riding on my hip is riding on someone else's. So, back we go to these questions. Friendship, character, ethics.
So this is such a huge thing for him, and the way he's doing essentially like a Godot type of thing. Everyone's going to talk about Bernie before Bernie shows up. And so Gaspar is right here introducing us to Bernie Birnbaum, and we're watching this, and we're immediately seeing him as the villain because of how Leo is positioned. He's sitting behind the desk. He's calm. He's relaxed. This guy is sweating. He's more kind of huddled. And he's more agitated and slightly aggressive in his tone and demeanor. So you're already in your mind kind of subconsciously choosing sides in this. And so him delivering these comments about Bernie is giving us all this character work about Bernie. And when it's delivered so well by an actor, you buy in to the character that's being built by everybody who is going to talk about Bernie here. And that's the gift of this movie is when you cast great actors, they'll do a lot of the work for an actor before they show, or a character before they show up. And certainly Jon Polito is doing a great job here building up Bernie Birnbaum as kind of a cheat and a liar,
Well, and I believe that he spent a fair amount of time rehearsing this speech in his head long before he came in. And when he got to the end with this coda of friendship, character, ethics, I think he's like, all right, I will have laid it out and I'm going to get a response and they're going to say something and agree with me because I've said it so well. And he gets nothing. There's just a silence and then an awkward silence. And and I'm sure you've had this too, where you laid out your thing and you said your period and then nothing. And then he has to go.
So it's clear what I'm saying.
As mud.
I love this line. This is a great Coen Brothers line.
It's getting so a businessman can't expect no return from a fixed fight. Now, if you can't trust a fix, what can you trust?
And this is what's great about the performance of Polito, is he is Johnny Gaspar is legitimately asking this question existentially. He even like looks out a little bit into the sky, or into the ceiling of the room or whatever. Like, if you can't trust a fix, what can you trust? And so he's literally saying, like, this is just, even though it's cheating, it's like for him, if I fix something, this is a fact. Therefore, and if you can't trust a fact, how can you have any trust in anything? And one of the great things about this film is that it explores the institutional lies that you're told as a society, or the perils of believing in institutions and systems. We see it later on with O'Doul and the mayor, of course, with what they're doing with the police force and the politics. But also within this simple exchange between Leo and Johnny, even Johnny is questioning the system that's set up that they're all working in as criminals, that there is no morality here. There's no ethics. And so he's asking this question. And so I think it's, even within that small frame, there's a questioning of a system, throughout. It's great.
I honestly think you're going to think, people listening, I don't think you're going to think I'm crazy, but some people listening might think I'm crazy. I think Johnny Casper, in some place in his brain, would be very comfortable being part of Socrates' dialogues in the Plato, written by Plato. Like, he wants to be one of those students speculating on the nature of reality, right and wrong, and the meaning of words, and that's what he wants to be doing.
Yeah. And this is the brilliance of the movie. You made the antagonist extremely intelligent and constantly questioning what's going on in terms of how it fits within the construct of the world. He is constantly questioning these things and asking questions, Even when his son, he's like, kids, you got to be firm. And these things, he's always questioning these things. When he's pitching Tom on this situation, like, you're not being nice to me. That's not nice. Now I got to do this. I don't want to do this, but I got to do this. And Tom has to figure him out. Tom has to know how to do the end around on him, which is not easy, which is why the film is the way it is, because it takes more effort for Tom to turn it around on Johnny Gaspar than somebody else, and why he knew Johnny Gaspar was going to be a huge foil for Leo to get over, because as Leo admits himself, I don't like to think, Tom. And so you see the difference. Right? Johnny, legitimately, if Tom had gotten on board with Johnny and Tom is an unbeatable combo, and they rule that city for decades. But Tom is, in my opinion, is kind of in love with Leo, and so he is going to go to bat for Leo and does all of this stuff in the film for Leo. But he knows Johnny is the smarter person, and he knows Johnny understands what they're doing better than Leo does. But in the end, he chooses Leo for his own reasons. And so that's the shame of it. And that's the great tragedy within the film, is those two would have been great together if Tom had been willing to go on to Johnny's side.
And I'll say one more thing about this, and another just relation, because it just a connection with The Godfather just hit me, because I'm thinking about this idea of ethics within a crime syndicate, and is such a thing possible? And this idea of, like, you should be able to depend upon a fix. If you can't depend upon a fix, it's like, which sounds so insane. And yet my brain immediately went to the scene with Michael and Kay, where we're talking about presidents and senators don't have people killed. Yeah. Who's being naive, Kay? It's like, if you can't trust a fix, what can you trust? Well, there's all sorts of things that are fucking fixed in our world with very, very powerful people who are not ostensibly criminals, whether they're large corporations who are manipulating what we think and what we see, or politicians manipulating what we think and what we see, or people making money off of things that they really shouldn't be making money. Well, they're going like, hey, if you can't trust a fix, what can you trust? I mean, that is, and so I just sort of like, this is a perfectly reasonable conversation that they're having right now.
Yeah. I love how much of a thinker Johnny is in the whole movie.
And while this is happening, we've seen Albert Finney's Leo, and standing behind him, just sort of moving into the frame with his own drink, is Gabriel Byrne as Tom Regan.
Yeah, I mean, Gabriel Byrne. I think this is the second film we've done of his, right? Because we haven't done Usual Suspects yet, but we did do Excalibur, and he is Uther Pendragon in Excalibur. He received a Golden Globe as well as nominations for a Grammy Award, 2 Primetime Emmy Awards, and 2 Tony Awards. That's how heralded Gabriel Byrne is throughout his whole career. You've seen him in Point of No Return, Little Women, Usual Suspects, as I said, Man in the Iron Mask, Enemy of the State, Hereditary in 2018, which is one of those incredible horror films. He co-wrote The Last of the High Kings and also produced In the Name of the Father with Daniel Day-Lewis. As I said, he won the Tony Award for Best Actor in a Play in his roles in the Eugene O'Neill plays A Moon for the Misbegotten and Long Day's Journey into the Night. Sorry, he got nominated, not won. And for his television work, he got those Emmys nominations for his work in Treatment, which is a show I never saw, Steve, although it might be fun to go back and watch it after having done some therapy and what have you. Of course, recently he was also in Vikings, Maniac, and War of the Worlds. But dude, this is an actor who we supremely love. And what he said on the DVD or on the Blu-ray there for Criterion, he said that he came in and he tried to do kind of a Jewish accent because he thought that's what they wanted, or kind of an American Jewish accent. And the Coen brothers stopped him like 5 minutes in and were like, just do your Irish accent. Just do your Irish accent and do it that way. And because he was so good doing his regular voice, which is obviously with an Irish accent, it made it easier to cast Albert Finney in that role of Leo, to have them play off each other.
It's so funny because this is exactly why, while you should trust everything that you hear on the Cine-Files, you shouldn't trust who we're reporting on. And the reason I say that is because I heard exactly the opposite story. So the story that I heard was that he came in prepared to do a non-Irish accent, read the script, thought to himself it sounded better in his accent, but the Coens did not intend it that way. And he said, let me do it once with the Irish accent, and he convinced them to let him use his natural accent. What is the truth of this? The world will never know.
No, because Gabriel Byrne says it. But maybe you're right. Maybe the world will never know because we don't know what we weren't there that day to know what really. Right.
Well, and it's probably some combination of both. Of how exactly it came about. One thing I also read is when he went to the audition, he'd never been to the U.S. before. He'd never met the Coen brothers. He said he had never seen a Coen brothers film before doing these auditions, and that Marca Gay Harden was there. And basically he did, and this is a smart move, is he basically said, why don't we work together? And they worked together on it, and that's kind of what helped both of them get cast. One interesting thing I want to bring up, because you had said, like, when we had seen these actors, and there are 3 actors in the film Excalibur that I had seen over and over again before knowing who they were, because that was just Uther Pendragon. And then I saw Usual Suspects and Miller's Crossing, and only then realized, oh shit, that was Gabriel Byrne back then. And then I see Schindler's List and go, oh shit, that's Liam Neeson back then. I didn't know who Helen Mirren was. These are all people that I'd seen over and over again because I watched Excalibur so much, but didn't come to recognize them as actors on their own for a decade later, Yeah.
For a good return, you got to go betting on chance. And then you're back with anarchy. Right back in the jungle.
And as he says this line, we see this dark, very dangerous looking man in the background. And that is J.E. Freeman, who's playing Eddie Dane.
Yeah, this was supposed to be Peter Stormare, but he was doing Hamlet. And so on Broadway, or I think Broadway or somewhere on stage, and couldn't get away to play the role. So they rewrote the role to be more open. And J.E. Freeman came in and nailed the role. And you would argue that this is one of the most notable roles in his career. He was also the evil mobster And David Lynch's Wild at Heart, which we talked about in our recent David Lynch tribute. He was the cruel scientist, Dr. Mason Wren, in Alien Resurrection, which some people like and some people don't like. He was also in Ruthless People as the bedroom killer, the Patriot Games, Copycat, and Go. And he was nominated for Best Actor for playing Teach in the West Coast premiere of David Mamet's American Buffalo. He actually retired from acting back in 2007. But his performance here, man, it is chilling, absolutely chilling. And the character he plays here is just incredible throughout the whole movie. And the way again, a formidable antagonist for Tom and Leo. Both Johnny and the Dane are formidable antagonists for Leo and Tom, rather. So I love that.
And it does such a good job. And again, you can tell the Coen brothers watched The Godfather. They watched the noir movies because the way he appears reminds me of the scary guy in Godfather 2 that just hovers behind Pacino as they go down to Cuba and stuff. There's just sort of like, who is this scary presence?
The muscle. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're continuing to hear Gaspar's, treatise on ethics. He says,
whereas Bernie Birnbaum is a horse of a different color, ethics-wise. As in, he ain't got any.
You sure it's Bernie selling you out?
It ain't elves.
So to be clear, because we ruin everything on the Cine-Files, so if you haven't watched this movie, guess what? It's about to get ruined.
Yeah.
Are they correct about Bernie? Is he selling out?
Yeah, 100% they're correct about Bernie. Yes.
They are totally correct. Just because normally, and again, this is what's interesting about watching a movie more than once. The first time you watch it, we got Albert Finney. He seems very stately. Gabriel Byrne, they all look very official. And Jon Polito seems unsavory. Right. So there's a sense of going, that would be the question of the movie. Is this true or is this not true? But the fact is, it is true. Not only is it true, well, let me ask you this. Do Leo and Tom believe that Bernie is selling him out?
Yes, 100%. They know it.
So,
and Tom knows it for sure. Leo, I imagine, suspects it or knows it, but he doesn't care because he's in love with Verna.
Yep. And yet they're going to interrogate this as if they didn't know that.
They aren't going to. Leo is. That's the separation here. Yeah.
Very good point. Excellent point. Because he says,
no one else knows about the fix?
No one that ain't got ethics.
What about the fighters you pay to tank out?
We only pick fighters we know we can put the fear of God in.
And he asks other questions about the bookies, about other people that are involved. For instance, Mink LaRue.
Yeah, but it ain't Mink. I'll vouch for that.
How do you know?
It ain't Mink. Mink is Eddie Dane's boy.
Because one other thing we're going to ruin right now is that Eddie has a relationship with Mink.
Yes, he has a gay relationship. He's sleeping with Mink. Yeah, and we find out later that Mink has been sleeping with Bernie on the side. Yeah, and
I think that too is an open secret. Like, not only do I think probably Gaspar knows that, I think Tom knows that.
Yeah,
and I don't know if Leo knows about Eddie and Mink or not, because Leo's a little bit removed from some things.
Because he has Tom. Like he says, he doesn't like to do the thinking. Tom does the thinking.
Of course, the Dane always knows about the fix.
And what the hell is that supposed to mean?
Let it drift. All it means is a lot of people know.
If I wanted to establish that your accusation had no merit, this is how I would establish that. Is I would lay out, here are all the other people all of these people could be selling you out, not just Bernie.
Yeah.
And I like Gaspar's response.
I guess you ain't been listening. Sure, other people know. That's why we got to go to this question of character to determine just who exactly is chiseling in on my fix. And that's how we know that it's Bernie Birnbaum, the schmata kid. Because ethically, he's kind of shaky.
So, I got to ask you a question. But schmata is Yiddish for rag or anything worthless. So again, as you said, another anti-Semitic term being used towards him. But why do you think he means he's ethically kind of shaky? Is it because he's selling the things? Is it because he's gay? Or is it because he's Jewish? Or maybe all three? Why do you think he says he's ethically kind of shaky?
Well, this is what's one of the interesting things about the movie. And so first of all, there was something I had read as I was doing all the Coen Brothers research that someone had come at them because they didn't like the portrayal of Southerners in Raising Arizona. They felt it was condescending.
Oh, ridiculous.
Which I honestly think that the Coen brothers love all their characters.
Yes.
I think they totally love High and love Ed in Raising Arizona, despite the fact they are, as we said, lovable losers or lovable idiots, or I forget what we called them.
Yeah.
But I think they totally love them. And what that person said who criticizes, like, why don't you try being condescending to your own people for a change? And that somehow that's connected to the creation of Bernie Birnbaum.
Oh.
Now, I don't know if that's true or not. It seemed like there's particularly when it comes to the Coen brothers, is that this event maybe happened where this person criticized them. Somebody else made that connection to the character of Bernie. The Coen brothers never said that. I don't believe that that's how they work. But what I do think is, like, Bernie's a terrible person. I mean, let's be real clear about it. He is awful. I don't think the movie is anti-Semitic. We have two Jewish directors who that's the character that they created. The more I think about Johnny Gaspar, the more I take him at face value. I don't think he hates gay people like Eddie Dane or the Mink. I don't think he judges Bernie for being Jewish. I don't think yes, he uses anti-Semitic slurs because that's the language of the time. Yeah. But I think if Bernie was a straight shooter, he might still call him a schmata, but he wouldn't say that he wasn't ethical. I think it is purely because he sees that this is not an ethical person.
That's a fair point. Yeah, yeah. Than a horse of a different color. Yeah.
So you want to kill him?
For starters.
Which is, again, exactly what happens in The Godfather. So you want to kill him. Because what is the opening of The Godfather is, I'm asking you to kill these two boys that raped my daughter.
Great point. And just like The Godfather, they're about to get turned down for what they want.
There's a look from Leo up to Tom. Does Leo know, even at this moment, that Tom would advise him to kill Bernie or allow Bernie?
I don't know if Leo knows that. Again, Leo doesn't do a lot of thinking. So I don't know that Leo would necessarily know what Tom thinks on this situation. But the film lets us know what Tom thinks about Leo's decision.
Sorry, Casper. Bernie pays for protection.
Listen, Leo, I ain't asking for permission. I'm telling you as a courtesy. I need to do this thing, so it's going to get done.
And I'm telling you as a courtesy, you'll have trouble. You came here to see if I'd kick if you killed Bernie. Well, there's your answer.
Albert Finney is so completely solid in everything he does in this movie.
Yeah.
And again, Polito's character goes to what the deal is. Because he pays protection money to Leo.
I pay off to you every month like a greengrocer, a lot more than the schmata, and I'm sick of getting the high hat.
John, have you ever been sick of the high hat?
That's a term I've used since 1990, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sick of getting the high hat, which is, of course, the brush off or disrespect. And so I've always loved that term, and I've used it every once in a while in a situation, like they're giving me the high hat. Because I like the way this is portrayed. Johnny is a blue-collar worker. Leo is the establishment. And Johnny is saying, here's the logic. This stuff is happening. This guy is cheating me. I'm telling you as a courtesy that I'm going to do this thing. It's the price of business. So I'm just letting you know. And Leo's the one who's breaking the system by choosing favorites and not adhering to the code because he's sleeping with the sister of the person who's doing these things. And so this is where we see the break. The whole movie depends on this scene and the break between Johnny and Leo over Bernie because of Leo's feelings for Verna.
Well, what's interesting to me is that, and not being well-versed in the world of organized crime, as you know, it never occurred to me that you could define protection money in different ways. Because what Leo then says is that, no, you pay protection for a certain set of goods and services which you receive.
As far as I know, and what I don't know in this town ain't worth knowing. The cops haven't closed any of your dives, and the DA hasn't touched any of your rackets. You haven't bought any license to kill bookies, and today I ain't selling any.
He's saying that when you buy protection from me, you're not paying for protection from Bernie. You're paying to get the DA and all those things off off of you. And Bernie is paying for protection. And therefore this has, you didn't buy the right to kill this guy.
Which is all bullshit, but yes.
Well, it's all crime anyway, so yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, from Johnny's point of view, what Leo is doing is bullshit. What Leo is doing is I'm going to say he's fixing the situation for his benefit, and he's not adhering to the code of what they have established, it seems like, within this criminal underworld.
And then he says, to be even more disrespectful,
so take your flunky and dangle.
You think that I'm some guinea fresh off the boat and you can kick me. But I'm too big for that now. I'm sick of taking a strap from you, Leo. I'm sick of marching into this goddamn office to kiss your Irish ass. And I'm sick of the high hat.
This is Johnny now aggressively crossing the desk towards Leo. He's probably never done this. But he feels he's growing in power. You can tell. Sollozzo, would I have been able to get to The Godfather 10 years ago? This is Sollozzo in essence. Yeah. This is what's happening. And so he's crossing that line by crossing the desk in that way aggressively. And it's also a character moment for us to log in the back of our minds because we see it as if the shirt he's wearing is choking him to death, that he's almost out of breath, sweating profusely, and Eddie the Dane has to put his hand on his shoulder to pull him back from the brink. And probably has done this a number of times with Johnny, which is why he keeps Eddie the Dane there as his muscle and essentially confidant. He knows how to pull him back from the brink. So you have this element that Johnny can be emotional. Johnny can let his emotions get the best of him. No matter how philosophical he is as a person, he has a weakness, and the weakness is his emotion in those moments and the idea of feeling like someone is talking down to him. He hates it. And so all of that comes through in this moment really strongly as a character beat. And you can tell Tom is not happy that Leo has made this decision. He's shocked by it. And so he's sitting there looking at all of this happening. And he knows that Leo's made a huge mistake.
What's so brilliant about all this for me is that I, and most people watching movies, are not drawn to the sweaty people who lose their tempers. We're drawn to the calm, cool, collected, good-looking people sitting on the other side of the desk. So and because I had watched The Godfather multiple times before I saw this, I immediately, I didn't think about the connection to The Godfather when I first watched it, but I think I was immediately going well, Leo's like Vito Corleone. And so this is just some penny-ante guy who loses his temper. He's not quite in control. I don't know that he's right about Bernie because I'm watching it for the first time. Right. And so I just go, I'm kind of team Leo a little bit, even though I see Tom is not quite so happy about it. Yeah. But in watching it multiple times, I'm like, there is a clear ethical violation in the code. Yeah. Johnny is the only one pointing it out. Yes. And this guy's not helping him. And he's been paying this guy forever. And the thing you said a little while ago, Johnny's a blue-collar guy, which I agree with. But Johnny's a blue-collar guy who's busted his ass for years to become not maybe quite as powerful as Leo because he doesn't have all the connections, but pretty goddamn close. And so when he's pissed off about getting the hi-hat, he has good reason to be pissed off about it. Yeah. As you said, Eddie settles him down and he's heading out of the office. And I love that his last words are,
"He's fancy pants, all he is."
I've used that. It's a great line. It's a great line, And for those of us who are watching the movie, this is a great opening scene, just like the opening scene for The Godfather. The dialogue here is great. The back and forth is fantastic. And you're not watching a typical gangster film because how many gangster films start with one of the lead gangsters having an ethical conundrum about ethics? It's just genius to start a film like this. This is what elevates this film out of the pile of great gangster movies. It is such a intelligent gangster movie. There's an intelligence running throughout this whole movie that is fascinating to explore as you watch the film. Yeah.
And just as he gets to the door, fucking Albert Finney says,
"Johnny, you're exactly as big as I let you be and no bigger, and don't forget it ever."
That's right, Leo. You're the big shot around here, and I'm just some schnook likes to get slapped around.
Right there. I think a year ago, Johnny hears Leo and goes, "You're right, Leo. I'm sorry," and walks out. Now he goes, "Yeah, you're right, Leo. I'm just some schnook that likes to get slapped around." He gets the last word in and walks out. So you see that this is a power struggle between these two guys, and it's kind of a foreshadowing for what we're going to get between the two of them throughout the whole movie.
After they're gone, Leo makes a little smile and a joke, and Tom says in his first line,
Bad play, Leo.
and so we get his disapproval.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say this right at the beginning as we're starting.
Please.
Tom and Leo is one of the most fascinating relationships in any movie I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's funny. Do you know what's funny about it? We literally just, the short that has gone out this week on the Cine-Files, patreon.com/the-Cine-Files, it is not a short. It is a epic long conversation about male friendship. And this, Tom and Leo, is a deep, complicated, and at least in this film, almost entirely unspoken male friendship.
Yeah. And also how can I say this? The construction of their relationship is another reason why this is one of the most unusual gangster films ever. The leader of the mob, or this particular side of the mob, he actually is secondary to Tom, who is his advisor. Not even his muscle, his advisor. So you rarely see that, where the head of the mob is giving in to the person who is their advisor or their second in command, in essence, which is what Tom kind of is. And so the fact that they have this back and forth so freely, and Leo is just trying to make a joke about everything in this entire exchange with him and Tom, while Tom is trying to make it really clear that Leo is messed up here, I think is great. The other thing that we do with character work in this scene that I think is smart as well is that Tom is going to seem like this really smart, intelligent, insurmountable guy that knows what to do, whether he plans ahead or he's thinking on his feet and troubleshooting a situation. But you have to give him a weakness, his kryptonite. And the kryptonite is clearly his gambling. And so that's introduced right off the bat here in this back and forth with him and Leo.
That's what I mean. Still owe money to you. Who's your bookie, Lazar? I could put it right for you.
Thanks, Leo. I don't need it.
And a pig's eye. You haven't played a winner in 6 weeks. People will speak ill of me if I let him break your legs.
And Tom says, and I love this line,
People will say I had it coming.
multiple things about this.
Okay.
First of all, as you said, this is his weakness. And I think Verna is another weakness of Tom's. Where it fits in exactly gets real complicated.
Yes.
I also, and I do think, we're going to talk about this a lot, but this relationship, as you said, isn't like anything we've ever seen in a mob film, this friendship here. But I also want to go to this idea of ethics, which is that Tom also has a code of ethics.
Yes.
That is not the same as Johnny's and not the same as Leo's. One of his pieces of ethics is he can't let Leo pay his gambling debt for him.
Right.
And that if someone were to come along and break his legs because of his debt, he would have it coming.
Yeah.
Because that is ethically it is correct for a person at his level of debt to get his legs broken, Yeah,
absolutely. And many people try to pay Tom off, and he does not take it.
Call me a big-hearted slob, but I'm gonna square it for you. Yeah. I think I'll do that this very same night. Looking at you moping around takes away all my, what do you call it? Joy de vivre?
Joie de vivre.
Well, if you're gonna laugh, I'm in the hell with you.
The hell with you.
So again, right, we're seeing a sample, as you were talking about, Steve, of their relationship. Leo wants to do this for Tom because Leo cares about Tom. I'm not saying they have a romantic love for each other, but I think they love each other as people.
I do too.
Yeah, right? They've developed I won't say brotherhood. It's beyond friendship, beyond love, but it's not beyond brotherhood, but it's not romantic. It's just something where they do love each other as human beings, which is why what happens at the end is interesting for me to consider now. But this back and forth is a perfect example of it. You see that they have this easy ball-busting camaraderie and friendship, but underneath it, Tom has this thing of you made the mistake here. There is ethics. And I agree with you. He doesn't have the same ethics as Johnny, but he respects ethics like Johnny does. And he has his own. And the fact that Leo wants to break both Johnny's ethics in their system and break Tom's ethics shows you that Leo doesn't really have ethics. His only ethics is power and how to keep power. That's all he cares about, you know?
I think one of the things about Tom and Leo is that, neither of them on their own could be a perfect mob boss. But if the two of them are working together in perfect concert, I think they can.
Which is what they had been doing up until this point.
And I think part of the key is that they both know that. They both see that Leo is aware of what he is good at, and he is aware of where his lack is, and he knows that Tom can do what he can't do. And I think Tom fucking idolizes a certain part of Leo.
Yes.
Like, he looks at Leo and it's like, this guy is the whole package, except for the thing that Leo can't do that I can do, you know? Like, and so I think that, so there's this weird tragedy, you know, of this movie of going like, because I'm sure you feel this way, I want their friendship to survive, even though they're both mobsters, you know?
Well, I don't know if, I actually don't know if I ever felt that way. I think I've always felt like Leo was an idiot and Leo fucked up. And Tom was trying to guide them back, and Leo was given multiple opportunities not to do it. So yes, right now in this version, right now at this stage of the friendship in the film, they are a great tandem together. I think Leo realized, as you said, Steve, that Tom could do the things he couldn't do. As Leo says in the film, I can't think, Tom can think ahead, but Tom doesn't like to get his hands dirty. So Leo does that. Leo does not mind wading in, and we see numerous examples of Leo and his brutality when called upon, which he does with icy confidence.
Yeah.
And they're great together, as you said, Steve, which is why this is the break. This situation with Verna, this situation with Bernie and Johnny, this is the break in their relationship. And it's the break that by the end, in my opinion, will never be repaired again.
I agree. Because what happens when Tom gets the door is he says,
there is one thing you can do for me.
Name it.
Think about what protecting Bernie gets us. Think about what offending Casper loses us.
Oh, come on, Tommy. You know I don't like to think.
He said, and then I love Tom's line back, which is,
I think about whether you should start.
And heads out.
Yeah. So both him and Johnny get the last word in their exchange with Leo as they walk out the door in this scene.
The music comes in, and we have this beautiful shot looking up at the trees as the camera is moving. There's that great Carter Burwell score, who's done, in addition to almost all the Coen Brothers movies, Banshees of Inisherin, I didn't realize was him. He did the Twilight movies. He did In Burgess. You know, he did all sorts of interesting films. And this score is just haunting and lovely. And then we get to this image, which is we're looking in this forest and the black hat comes into frame. We see the title in that great font, Miller's Crossing, and the hat blows away into the woods as the music fades down and we go to black.
It's a great foreshadowing of how important hats are going to be in the film.
Yes.
And certainly Tom's dream, which he's going to tell Verna later on in the movie. So, and of course the woods, which we're going to see in that really incredible scene between him and John Torturro in the film.
Wake up, Tommy.
I am awake.
Your eyes are shut.
Who you gonna believe?
It's a great line.
Yeah.
And I love the next one, too, because he had said he was going to go play cards to make up for his losses gambling.
Yeah. How'd I do?
What do you think? You are a millionaire. You're going to remember your friends?
So the gambling has not gone well.
And this is Oleg Krupa, who is playing Tad the bartender. Oleg is a Polish-American actor. You guys have seen him in Eraser, Blue Streak, Home Alone 3. He was also in The Italian Job, the remake. Behind Enemy Lines, Salt, X-Men First Class, Hidden Figures, and The Fate of the Furious. So he's one of those kind of nondescript European actors that you see in a number of films, but this is probably the most cleanest version of Oleg Krupa that you're ever going to see. And I think he has a great relationship with Tom. They clearly were friends for some time because the amount of piss he takes out of Tom throughout the whole movie, I think betrays a relationship that was there. They probably came up together through the gangster system and what have you. And there's more to him than you think. He's not just a bartender. He's more than just a bartender, in my opinion.
And of course, the first thing that Tom is looking for is his hat.
Who made off with my hat?
Verna. Verna and Mink.
Who?
Mink and Verna.
And by the way, I love the Coen Brothers. If you just watch how they're shooting things, is always interesting. It's like we stay on Tad in the mirror as things are moving around, like just the way structurally they think about doing it. And Tom is already on to his next bet, which is Thunderclap in the horse race, because he's got to make the money back.
Lay off, Tom. You shouldn't go deep in the hole.
Tell us, I want 500 on the nose.
And then we cut to him knocking on a door, and the door opens, and there is Marca Gay Harden. I'm sure this is the first thing I saw her in or noticed her in.
Yeah, an up-and-coming actress at this time. And as you said, her and Gabriel worked on the audition pages together, and that may have helped her get the job. By the way, did not know this from La Jolla. I had no idea she was from La Jolla. So the daughter of parents from Texas would move to the San Diego area, but from La Jolla there. And of course, she has an Academy Award, a Tony Award, and a nomination for 4 Primetime Emmys. She won, I think, the Academy Award for Pollock, Best Supporting Actress, Mystic River, and then her other films: First Wives Club, Flubber, Space Cowboys, one of my quietly favorite Clint Eastwood movies, Mona Lisa Smile, and 50 Shades of Grey. She made her Broadway debut in 1993, Steve, in Angels in America, Tony Kushner's Tony Kushner's play, which she was nominated for Tony Award for Best Featured Actress in a play, and then came back in 2009 to Broadway to play in God of Carnage, Yasmin Reza's play there, and her performance earned her the Tony Award for Best Actress in a Play there in 2009. She was in The Newsroom, How to Get Away with Murder, and recently So Help Me Todd, which is one of the favorite series of the Lady Outlaw, who was very upset that CBS canceled it after 2 seasons, and of course on the morning show recently on Apple TV Plus as well. And she is great in this movie, and I think they were looking at a lot of other actresses. I think Julia Roberts auditioned for this role. Jennifer Jason Leigh, who would later be in Hudsucker Proxy, auditioned for this role, but they went with Marcia, and I think this is the sexiest and strongest performance she's delivered in her entire career, and I love her in this movie, man.
It's Jennifer Jason Leigh is Hudsucker?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember when we talked briefly about Hudsucker and our whole piece on the Coen Brothers, and you said that she plays sort of a caricature, like she's putting on the role of that kind of person.
Yeah.
That is exactly what Marca Gay Harden is not doing.
Exactly. Yes.
She is embodying that kind of person. She becomes this noir character from this kind of film and just is completely there. And I can see things that we talked about when we watched The Sting, the woman who's the assassin in that movie. You can see there's so many things but it's her solidity, it's sexiness, it's all of that stuff. And it's all the thoughts going on right even in this opening moment.
I want me hat.
Is that all you came for?
Yeah. I want me hat.
It's mine. I want it.
What are you gonna do with it?
Drop dead.
And closes the door. And right at this moment, we go, oh, there's more here. I don't understand what's here, but there's a lot more here.
And we know that she's formidable because we've been presented Tom as a formidable person, even with his foibles of betting and drinking too much. Him showing up at Verna's apartment and her not opening the door and being like, oh my God, great to see nothing. She opens it slightly. She stands in the doorway in a sexy pose with her arm leaning on the door because it's her domain, a queen atop her kingdom. And he makes fun of her about the hat and she shuts the door on him because fuck you. I love that. So immediately you know that she is a formidable person that is going to be a foil for Tom as the film goes on.
I need a drink.
Why didn't you say so?
And then he goes in. What's so great, people are always going like, well, I have this character and I have to explore their backstory and explain where they come from and who they are and how they met and all the details that lead up to this moment so everybody understands. And it's like, no, you don't. If you just have them say, I want my hat, is that all you came for? Knock again. I need a drink. Why didn't you say so in the first place? And he goes in. And now, do we know everything about their history? Absolutely not. Do we understand a little bit about their relationship? And are we completely involved in their relationship?
Yeah.
Yes, you totally are, just from this.
Because there's enough mystery around it that you want to
Exactly.
know more. Right. It's very smart in the way they introduce it.
I mean, honestly, and I know I've said this before, that there was an acting book I had seen years ago where it said its philosophy was every scene is a love story. So when you're training on acting, you think everything's a love story or seduction. And I always went, I think maybe from a writing perspective, every movie is a mystery. Everything is about mystery. Way more important to establish mystery than it is to establish facts and backstory. Because we want to be intrigued, You're
so right, Steve. Every great movie, I think, is a mystery.
Yeah.
Or has a mystery within it. That's a great point, Steve. Yeah.
I mean, some of the mystery is like, where is this going to end up?
Yes.
But it's like, but that's obviously but it's like, well, who is this person? What do they want? Why did they do that? When you watch a movie and you go, fuck, why did they do that? You're in the movie, Yeah.
Is Rocky going to win? I don't know. I got to find out. Yeah.
Indiana Jones piles a bunch of sand into his satchel. Why did he do that? You're in. What are they going after?
How are they going to survive this thing that kills people when you open the ark? How are they going to do it?
It's the mystery. We don't need to really know. It's that's what gets us involved. And this has us. And what I love is they even twist it for us further in what we cut to, because the music is very ominous. We see the hat, obviously sitting on the counter. We're going to see that a lot. Tom is smoking in bed. The camera pushes in on him. He gets up slowly because we hear a knock, goes to the door, opens the door, and it's Leo.
Oh, Tommy, sorry about the hour.
I'll live.
And we hear the first of many.
What's the rumpus?
That was going to be, what's the swing in your J? And so I do like what's the rumpus better, but I still would have loved to have heard what's the swing in your J somewhere in this movie.
I tried calling earlier.
I got home late.
Well, I'm sorry about the hour.
And I think Leo's awkwardness, even though I barely know this character, I think is unusual for him. I don't think he's normally someone who is awkward, but he feels awkward in this moment,
Well, let's take a moment here, Steve, because what we just saw in the scene was Tom going to Verna's apartment.
Right.
But we are now clearly in Tom's apartment.
Yes.
Because Tom wouldn't answer Verna's door.
Right.
And this is a different setup because the living room is massive as opposed to Verna's apartment. Yeah. So what happened? How did they end up at Tom's apartment with his hat back on his dresser and them in bed together? Did they spend the whole evening together? We're going to find out, I guess.
So I have two completely different thoughts. And again, this goes into everything's a mystery, is that one thought is, yes, they fooled around a little at Verna's, and then Tom convinced them to go back to his place, and that's what happened. Fine. Yeah. I also think that the Coen Brothers said, we have this setup where Tom goes to Verna to get his hat. We want Leo to show up at Tom's, even though Tom went to Verna's. How are we going to solve this problem? And they went, you know what? We're going to ignore the problem, and we're just going to cut from one to the other and let the audience do exactly what John and Steve are doing right now.
People fill it in.
They'll fill it in.
Very possible. Very possible.
And not only that, they'll think we're clever rather than lazy, which is in fact maybe what it is.
Point. And I love the way Tom is playing this, right? You don't understand, like, why is Tom being so, like, he's looking at him and he's a little nervous about it. So you're just like, okay, what's this all about? So again, as you said, the mystery.
Well, let's blow the mystery right now, because to be clear, Verna's in the other room.
Yes.
Also, to be clear, Leo is in love with Verna. That's what's about to come out.
Which we don't know yet.
We don't know that yet. But Tom knows that already.
Yes, 100%.
And Tom knows that if Leo found Verna in the bed, Tom is dead.
Yes.
This is literally a life or death situation. Now, we as the audience don't know that yet, but Tom is fully aware of that at this moment.
Yeah.
And Tom is, say what you want about Tom, he is calm under all sorts of circumstances that he's going to have to experience in this movie.
Yeah.
That Tom will keep his shit generally together.
Generally.
And he says,
You thought about cutting Bernie loose?
Can't do it, Tommy. Can't do it.
and again, it's this awkwardness that I think is alien for Leo.
Tommy, I don't know where Verna is.
Uh-huh.
I know what you're thinking. What else is new? But the situation, though. I'm worried.
So now we as the audience are starting to clue into, is what's going on with Leo and Verna.
Now, we don't know Verna is Bernie's sister. We just
Not
know
yet.
that this is something new. Verna, what's the deal here?
Verna can take care of herself. Maybe better than you can.
What does that mean?
By the way, does anybody talk to Leo like this other
That's
than
what
Tom?
I'm getting at. Yeah, right? What did I say from the beginning? Like, their relationship is so unique because Tom is the only one. And even in this scene, Leo's going to say, I reckon I can trade body blows with anybody in this town. And Tom just stares at him until he says, except for you, Tom. When's the last time you saw the head of the mob say he couldn't handle his second in command? So it's such an interesting relationship because Leo knows that without him, without Tom, he would have never been successful. And the fact that Tom also understands that situation but needs that occasional moment of fealty from Leo is a fascinating situation for a relationship to be in a film. And certainly the fact that they're both in love with the same woman, which we discover throughout at least I believe that, throughout the movie, is the big thing that gets in the way between the both of them.
If she didn't need you to protect her brother from Johnny Casper, you think she'd still be going on slow carriage rides with you through the park? That's the deal, isn't it? You keep Bernie under wraps till Casper cools down.
So is that true?
Yes, 100%. And what's even more insane is that Tom is doing this while Verna is in the other room. So this is the thing about Tom. He does have these ethics that even in this moment, even though he's sleeping with Verna, who is clearly, he knows what she's doing with Leo, he's still sleeping with her. He still is willing to tell the truth about her, even though she's in the other room, willing to tell the truth about the situation, even though she's in the other room, because he loves Leo. You know, their relation to friend, not romantically. I just mean like as a human being, as a person. You know?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. We can call this a depression era mobster bromance, but there's a bromance. Yeah. But here's the thing. So I totally agree with you. Your description of Tom, that's how I see him as well. But a Tom who was in love with Verna, which I believe in Tom's way he totally is.
Yes.
And doesn't want his woman sleeping with this other guy. It is totally in his self-interest, not in an ethical way, to destroy the relationship with Verna and Leo.
You're right. He could have both ulterior motives along with motives to help Leo get out of the situation. So yeah, I mean, it's a great point. It helps everybody.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. This is why this movie is so interesting. Is like, I believe, and this is, I try to do this in my own life of like, look at my own motivations and go, okay, I do want that thing. But I don't think the reason that I'm suggesting this other person do this is so I can get the thing. I believe that I'm giving them the correct ethical advice, even though it works to my advantage.
Well, of course, because you're always going to give yourself the benefit of the doubt.
And this is exactly what I'm doing for Tom in this moment. Yeah. I believe he does think that Verna is manipulating him, even if he wasn't sleeping with her. And I believe he does believe that Bernie is a bad person and that Leo is foolish to protect him.
Yes.
But it could just as easily be that he just wants Verna. You know?
Yes. Very true. Yeah.
What's wrong with him wanting a brother taken care of?
Nothing. I don't blame her. She sees the angle, which is you. She plays it.
And I like this line too.
She's a grifter. Just like her brother. Probably had grifter parents and grifter grandparents, and someday they're each going to spawn little grifter kids.
To be clear, this is about the woman who is in the other room who he just had sex with.
Who he's in love with, by the way.
Yeah. And I was going to say it again. In whatever love means for Tom.
Yes, right.
Which is not what love means for Leo. Is like Leo is romantically swooning over Verna.
Yes.
You know.
Right, which is why Tom says, how deep does she have her hooks in you? Right. Yeah. That's the thing, is like, how much are you in love with her? Because that's going to ruin what we have, in essence. And not just our bromance, but that may be another reason he wants it to. Throw in another motivation, Steve. She is getting the way in between the both of them.
Yeah, totally.
So if I have her, then you don't have her, but also she's not in the way between us. Possibly. But of course, that's not really true.
I'll say another thing, and this is why this movie is so fun to talk about.
Yeah.
But is that I think Tom loves Verna in a particular way. And I think, as we've already said, Tom loves Leo. I think personally, Tom's love for Leo is purer than his love for Verna. I'm not necessarily sure if I'm saying it's greater than his love, but it is more pure. His love for Leo is way more absolute than his love for Verna is.
I would agree with that because of how things end up at the end of the movie. But I do think Verna loves Tom. She does not love Leo. And I think that opening scene between them is a clue for when she opens the door and have the back and forth about the hat. She shuts the door on him, and it's only when he opens it when he knocks again and says, "I want a drink." It's the closest he's going to get to saying, "I have feelings for her and feelings for you." And throughout the movie, she is constantly trying to get him to admit his feelings for her because she, I think, does love him, and it's not because of the power or it's not because of anything else. She does love him, but they're in these roles they have to play in this insane situation of an underworld. And so you can't have your let's romp through the fields and hold hands in love. You can't, because there are too many people involved. And she is at cross purposes. In love with Tom, having sex with Leo in order to save Bernie. And Bernie is the linchpin of everything.
It's so funny because I hadn't been thinking until you just said that about Verna's ethical code.
Yeah.
That she's running her own ethical code, and it is not the same as Johnny's, and it's not the same as Tom's. It's her, and one of the key factors in her ethical code is blood is thicker than water. Because I don't even think she likes Bernie, frankly. I mean, Bernie is not a terribly likable person.
Well, you stick by your family. Yeah.
But you stick by your family, and that is really high up in the ethical code, you know? And and she can't violate that.
You're a Jewish person. Is this a thing? Like, as you're saying, were they writing these characters to reflect Jewish people? Because they're clearly both Jewish. So is this a thing about the family? Like, is there a thing within the Jewish code that the family is above all else?
Yeah, but I don't think it's particularly Jewish. I mean, I think, if you said, is there a thing in the Latino code that says you stick with your family? The answer would probably be yes.
Probably yes. I don't adhere to it, but yes.
Right. But I do know you said you got pressure from family of, like, when you would talk about your friends being your family. I feel like we've had that conversation in the past.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think if you went to Italians, you'd hear the same thing. I think if you went to if you went to Chinese people, so I don't think it's a particularly Jewish thing necessarily, but she definitely feels it. And speaking of friendship, that's sort of the next thing that happens, because Leo says,
"Stop it, Tommy. I don't like to hear my friends run down even by other friends."
Friendship's got nothing to do with it.
The hell, you say you do anything to help your friends like you do anything to kick your enemies.
Wrong, Leo.
Again, this is what's so funny about this movie. That's Leo's code. Yeah. Leo's code is Tom is my friend, Verna is my friend, and I'm protecting my friends, because that's what you do. And Tom's response to that is his code. Friendship's got nothing to do with it.
But see, that's the thing. And what Leo says next, he's trying to drag Tom into his mentality. When he says, the hell you say, you do anything to help your friends, just like you do anything to kick your enemies. And Tom says, wrong, Leo, you do things for a reason. And that's where Tom is trying to get Leo to see his point of view. But Leo is caught up in this thing where, for him, standing by being loyal to your friends, that's more important than any kind of system or code or ethics. And that's always the conundrum you run into when you do stuff with people, is what is their guiding principle? Is it loyalty and ethics, or is it playing favorites with family and friends? And those are the things you run into, constantly.
But what I'll say differently, which is that no. But what I think is that these are different codes of ethics. Is that it's not loyalty versus ethics, is loyalty as a code of ethics. So, and here's what I mean. And this is, we talked about drunken questions at parties and stuff. One of them that has come up is like, you're at a bar and someone tries to throw a punch and tries to beat up your buddy. Well, you protect your buddy.
Yes.
Now you're in the scenario where your buddy is acting like an asshole.
Yeah.
And people want to beat him up. And I'd be still like, well, I protect my buddy, but I wouldn't necessarily beat up an innocent person when my buddy started the fight to protect them. because now we're into this kind of what's the ethics, what's the code here? Is it loyalty? My relationship, my friend is paramount, or is there broader ethics that you need to consider before you make those decisions, you know?
I'm in that boat. If you're acting like an asshole, I am not jumping into the fight to defend you or protect you or save you. I don't care who you are.
I will try to end the fight. I will try to get between. I will try to break things up.
You're doing a Kobayashi Maru. It's one or the other. You can't stop the fight. So to go with your question, you have to remove the Kobayashi Maru, which means you have to choose you have to make a decision. If your friend is acting like a shitheel and gets into a fight, do you join the fight on your friend's side or do you stay out of it?
So I will reject your premise before I will secondarily accept your premise.
You're giving yourself escape hatch.
Go ahead, I'm not. I said I will answer your question. But I have been in this situation more than once where there were people getting upset that I didn't necessarily agree with, that I stepped in to stop the fight. But I will answer your question as you framed it, which is that I don't have that option. I would say it depends on degrees, but I can't imagine watching my friend get killed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's 5 against 1,
that's a whole nother ballgame.
You know, like then I can't imagine. But in general, it's like, look, if I had a friend who like called someone a racial slur and then got punched in the face for it, I'd be kind of like, you know, I'm not helping you. I'm not going to go punch someone who's innocent because my friend is an asshole. No, I'm not going to do. Well, but I think Leo would.
Yes.
100%. Because his ethics are based on loyalty, you know?
Friendship
and I was literally just having this conversation with my sister of like, do you go, these are the bad guys and we are the good guys. Therefore, anything we could do to fuck with them is worthwhile. And anything we could do to protect us is worthwhile. Or do we go, there's ethical considerations that I wouldn't do that. Even if the bad guys would do that, you know, this is, and again, it's all in this little mobster movie from 1990, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, Tom, you know all the angles, Christ, better than anybody. But maybe you're wrong about this. You don't know what's in Verna's heart.
Well, if she's such an angel, why are you looking for her at 4 o'clock in the morning?
Again, we still don't really know 100% that she's in the fucking bedroom.
Right.
And Tom is now asking.
Oh, you're right, we don't.
I put a tail on it this afternoon.
The micro reaction that Tom has.
So good.
It's great shot selection and it is great acting. It's just so small.
It's the first time we see a slight hint of fear in Tom. Yeah.
And so then when he asked the question.
So what did Rugg say that has you scurrying over here?
Which the question is like, I went to see Verna. Did Rugg see me go to her place and bring Verna back here? Has Leo known that Verna's in my bed this whole time? That's the question.
Yeah.
That's just it. Nothing. He's disappeared.
So you've lost your lady friend and the tail you put on her?
I guess it does sound pretty sorry at that.
It's like, we're going to need a couple of more FBI guys. It's like where my brain goes.
You shouldn't be confronting Johnny Caspar. That's what I've been trying to tell you. You can't trade body blows with him. He's gotten too strong.
I reckon I can still trade body blows with any man in this town.
I love Tom's reaction to hearing Leo say that.
Yeah.
Because he loves that about Leo.
Right.
That confidence, that swagger, and he loves that he knows it's true, you know, to some degree.
Except you, Tom.
And Verna.
Okay, give me the needle. I am a sap.
And he heads out. Tom gets up. He goes back to the bedroom. And only now do we realize that Verna has been in the room the whole time.
Who was that?
Leo. He's looking for you.
Did you tell him I was here?
No.
Did you put in a good word for my brother?
No.
Now, Tom could lie and say, yeah, of course I did. But why wouldn't Tom lie?
It's not his ethics to lie in this.
Exactly.
In this kind of thing, yeah.
That would be dishonest.
Yes.
Sleeping with the woman that he knows the person that he loves most in the world is somehow not violating the ethics in this way.
No, because he knows that he shouldn't be, that Leo shouldn't be sleeping with her. In his mind, he knows that he is better fit for Verna and that Leo's messing himself up by messing around with Verna.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave.
I'm not saying he's right. I'm just saying, yeah.
You said you would.
I said I'd think about it.
Which is ethically correct. He
Yes,
has
did.
thought
He did
about
say
it.
that.
Did you see Rook Daniels last night?
No. What did you tell Leo?
I told him you were a tramp and he should dump you.
Which is kind of what he told her. He didn't use those words,
Basically,
but
yeah.
essentially that's what he said. And she throws a shoe at his head, which he dodges.
You're a son of a bitch, Tom.
And by the way, I think she says he's a son of a bitch a number of moments throughout the movie, and it has a different meaning each time. But there's so much here that I love that initially she hates that he has this element of himself, but it's also what draws her to him. Because look, let's make it real clear. In the criminal underworld, it's not like these people are well-adjusted, mentally healthy people who don't have self-destructive impulses within them or aren't drawn to people who are dangerous or bad or not good. Like, this is a criminal underworld. You know, there are numerous reasons people are involved in this kind of stuff, especially back in the 1920s. And as you said with Tom is self-destructively in a relationship with Verna. Tom bets to the point where people might have to break his leg. Tom drinks to the point where he doesn't remember. He blacks out and has no memory of things the night before. These are his self-destructive impulses. These are his self-destructive actions. Leo the same way. Leo knows what he's risking here, but he's still going to do it anyway because no one's going to tell him what the fuck to do instead of listening to the smarter person. Verna, in a way, is the same way. Verna having sex with Leo and being with Tom, she knows at any moment if Tom finds out, if Leo finds out, that she'll basically be ostracized and it could spell curtains for Bernie. But she still sees Tom, has sex with Tom, could be caught with Tom, and what have you. And clearly they go out in public because Rug Daniels was tailing them. And so there's these moments where you see that everyone has their self-destructive impulses. Bernie, too, sleeping with Mink, who's Eddie Dane's boy, cheating on the fixes, all of this kind of stuff. They all have self-destructive impulses throughout the movie, and how they act on them is what makes the film so awesome and human, you know?
I think this is the central, everything you said is central to the whole film, which is that it is most humans have some ethical code that they like to believe that they're living up to. Bernie has none. Like, he's going to be the person with no ethical code, but most of us do. And then most of us consciously and mostly unconsciously violate that code because, really, I want one more drink, one more cheeseburger. I don't want to do this work thing left. I really don't want to, those taxes are really expensive. Maybe if I just hide a little bit of money over here or whatever. But humans do all those things. And that is what we're watching in this movie. Tom knows what's right. He knows he shouldn't sleep with Verna. Verna knows he shouldn't sleep with Tom. Leo knows that Bernie is actually guilty of this. And all of these people are letting certain elements of their particular ethical code slide to get them what they want or what they think they want in that moment.
And it all circled around Bernie. And as we both said earlier, like, Johnny is right in terms of how he sees Bernie. But Bernie is the dangerous one, Steve. And don't we see that in our own worlds? We're all struggling with our ethics. And the most dangerous person is the person that has no ethics and is willing to play like they do have ethics or willing to play like they do care about certain things in order to achieve what they want. And they have no remorse about doing it and always think they can talk their way out of a situation. And those are the most dangerous people in our worlds, are the people that have literally no ethics, but play at having ethics in order to take advantage of those of us who struggle with our ethics and cause us at times to violate our own ethics in order to save this person or help this person. And that's dangerous as hell.
You know that expression, in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king?
Yeah.
There's some other ancillary one, which I can't quite perfectly, but in a kingdom of people struggling to be ethical, the Bernies have a lot of power.
Yes.
Or can have a lot of power.
Yeah.
Because they can do whatever the fuck they want. And everyone else is going, well, I can't violate this code or this code or this code. And Bernies just go, I don't care.
I don't care. Which is,
I want to get what I want.
Exactly. And I'm not going to think twice about it, nor am I going to have any regret about it. Which is, terrifying.
Yeah. And then we cut to the most adorable little puppy dog.
Yeah.
And a very cute kid who are staring at something. And then we cut to the opposite of an amazingly cute puppy dog and a cute kid, which is a bloody body on the ground with a bullet wound in the head. And we see this kid standing over this dead body. And he reaches out very tentatively to the tuft of hair, which we now realize must be a rug. And this is the person we were talking about, that this is Rug Daniels. And the kid reaches out, touches the hair, then reaches out again and pulls the toupee off, looks at it for a second, and then runs away with the dog barking. Yeah. It is a classic Coen Brothers moment.
This is what makes them auteurs. These little moments in movies like this that other directors wouldn't do. Or wouldn't, and I don't mean that they're wasting their time, but wouldn't waste time doing. Because in their minds, it's a delay to where we need to get to. We don't even know that this guy's name is Rug Daniels yet. But we've got this scene. And so we can go like, that's such an odd scene. Why would what is this? And it's only later that we find out that it's Rug Daniels when Leo says something and it says, God, they took his hair, Tommy.
And so we cut from there right to, this is classic old school Hollywood filmmaking as you go to the newspaper, gangland slaying, politician's aide found dead in alleyway. And also on the same newspaper, if you were really paying attention, you remember that Tom was betting on a horse called Thunderclap, which of course was injured. So we know that Tom has lost yet another bet.
And he doesn't look happy about it.
And then the camera pushes in on a sign that says the Shenandoah Club members only. Tom comes in and immediately Steve Buscemi walks up to him and says,
Oh, Tom, what's the rumpus?
Mink?
See, you got your hat back.
This is so great because I love the direction here. And I think we should take moments to appreciate certain scenes and the way they're directed and the way we're walking into the club. Just that it's almost, it's very narrow in the shot. It's very focused on Tom. It's almost like he's walking through the sea, like splitting the Red Sea and what have you, walking through everybody in the club. And then just perfectly, as you said, having Mink slide up next to Tom there is just perfect. And of course, Steve Buscemi. What do you want to say about Steve Buscemi? And you, of course, known for Reservoir Dogs initially, then Living in Oblivion, Desperado, Con Air, Armageddon, which we've covered here on the show, Ghost World, Big Fish. Still, I hope one day we get to Big Fish. I love that movie so much. But collaborated with the Coen Brothers 3 times along with this movie. He also did Fargo, which we're going to be doing later, and then The Big Lebowski, which we did already, of course, as Donnie, and then did a bunch of Adam Sandler movies, which people may know him from those movies, Airheads, Billy Madison, Wedding Singer, Mr. Deeds. But for me, of course, I loved him as Nucky Thompson in Boardwalk Empire, which is one of these great series that people do not talk about enough, even though it ended only like less than or a little bit over 10 years ago. It's still an incredible series, and him playing the lead of that series was one of those big surprises of how he had grown so much as an actor and had gotten so old as a man that he was able to carry the lead of this series with such power and grace. So for any of you who haven't seen that film, that series, which has a young Charlie Cox, Daredevil, as one of the main characters in that show, I highly, highly recommend that one. Yeah.
He's so great. I love, I don't know if this is, basically, there's so much of the Coen Brothers that I don't know if what I heard was true because they don't talk about their own work and they're happy to make stuff up. But the thing that I heard is like, well, they were looking for someone who could say all these lines really, really fast. And so they went, well, Buscemi can do it.
He asked me to ask Leo to take care of him, put in a good word with Leo. Leo listens to you. Not that Leo wouldn't help the schmata anyway. And kind of like Bernie, you squared you like the schmata, straight shooter like him.
So I have cut to Steve Buscemi saying that line.
Yeah.
But had you listened to me try to say that line fast, you would have heard me, I don't know, I messed up 6 times at least. That were on, because to do that kind of thing, you have to get it all perfectly. There can't be a hesitation at all.
Only certain actors are uniquely gifted to be able to talk this fast and convey the meanings believably of what he's going through and by the shifts and changes like he's delivering here throughout this mini monologue that he does between him and Tom. And I love that Tom is above him as he delivers this monologue to him, almost like he's pleading. It's almost like a Romeo and Juliet scene that he's pleading with him to put in a good word for Leo for Bernie.
And the thing is that it's strange that he's putting in a good word for Bernie because that's what Tom brings up next. He says,
I thought you were Eddie Dane's sycophant.
Yeah, Tom, that's right, but a guy could have more than one friend, can he? I mean, not that I want the Dane to know about it.
I love the way that they deal with what is obviously the homosexual relationships within this film. There, you would think there would be all this judgment, but there really isn't.
No, there's no judgment. It's just accepted part of of them. Yeah.
Yep. I do think it's weird that they're talking about it so openly in the middle of this club where this is stuff that could easily get Mink killed.
What Buscemi does really great in this scene is, other than talking really fast, is when he brings up Eddie Dane. Immediately you see Buscemi's face kind of sneak looks around to see who's listening or who's watching and what have you, and he kind of gets a little nervous and self-conscious about it, trying to explain his relationship with Bernie to Tom, because Tom would know how to break this whole thing. And I don't think he's thought this out. So, because that's why Mink's a small time player. He can't think farther than one or two steps ahead. And he's been turned by both Eddie and Bernie. So he doesn't think that by going to Tom might tell Eddie about his situation with Bernie. And when it dawns on him, you see how Mink reacts to the whole thing because he hasn't thought that far ahead.
If Eddie Dane finds out that you got another amigo, well, I don't peg him for the understanding type.
Find out? How's he gonna find out? Damn it, Tom. You and me ain't even been talking. Jesus, Tom, damn it. Jesus.
And he screams it to him as he's walking up the stairs, which is great. The desperation in his voice. And so now we've got a new player in this game. We now have a face to Mink, and Mink is clearly, suing for Bernie to get Tom to help him with Leo. And now Tom has turned the tables on him. And now we have a little more of an understanding of what's going on here between Eddie and Mink and Bernie. So it's curiouser and curiouser.
Well, it's funny too because the first time through, you are always behind in this movie. You're never caught up with it.
100%. Yeah.
But I am now the sixth or the seventh or the ninth time through, and I feel like I'm still catching up. There's still more. Every time I watch it, it's like, oh, there's a little thing I didn't see between those. I didn't get that before.
Nothing signifies a great movie than something like that. Yeah.
Tom heads upstairs, goes into Leo's office, and we see Leo sitting at the desk, and there are these two older gentlemen that sit at the desk. And John, do you remember? I know you remember because it was just last month.
Yeah.
We're talking about Mad Max Fury Road, and there's this moment where he's having visions, and he sees the kid that he has a vision of, and the kid throws something at him, and Max does this gesture to block his head that is very recognizable because that gesture is going to come back later and save his life, right?
Right.
When the mayor and the chief of police turn to Tom as he enters the room, it is exactly the same thing, which is they do it in a way that is so specific and recognizable that you are going to notice it later on when it gets repeated.
And I love the intro. Do you know O'Doul and the mayor? That's just it. O'Doul and the mayor. Great stuff.
I oughta. Voted for him 6 times last May.
And that ain't the record either.
And this is Tom Toner and Richard Woods. Tom Toner plays O'Doul, who is the chief of police. And some of you may remember him from one of my favorite films, but also one of my favorite line deliveries ever. He plays the cop in Splash who walks up on Daryl Hannah when she walks by the Statue of Liberty naked and there's a whole crowd. He's the cop that breaks through and says, "Oh, all right, Missy, this ain't California. We don't go for this stuff here." It is such a great line delivery. And so he didn't do a lot of things. He did another Coen Brothers film in Hudsucker Proxy. He also did Doubt. He had a part in Doubt, the film there, and had an episode of Boardwalk Empire. And the mayor is Richard Woods, who we saw as the Reverend in and Out, the Kevin Kline movie, which was so great with Tom Selleck. He was in IQ. He was also in Hudsucker Proxy. And he did a few performances, soaps and whatever, but they picked 2 really good character actors to play these roles. And sadly, both of them have passed on. So, but I think they're great in the movie for the minimum amount of screen time that they have. And this scene we're about to get into is so much fun between the 4 of them,
Totally. And the first thing we hear is that Verna has turned up and that Leo has not asked her any questions. He hasn't pressed her in any way, which disappoints Tom.
You hear about Rugg?
Yeah. R.I.P.
It took his hair, Tommy.
Jesus, that's strange.
I love the over-the-shoulder shot they have from Tommy looking down at Leo at the desk. I think that's a setup they use a lot.
Yeah, and him sipping on the drink as he talks about it, I think is great as well.
So you figure Casper bumped drug?
Well, it's pretty obvious, ain't it?
Yeah? So what's the plan?
Oh, jump on the guinea hard with both feet. Give him the lowdown, Dale.
And I love the mayor's response. He goes,
Leo here just reminded us that Mr. Casper operates several clubs in our city wherein the patrons imbibe of rum and play at games of chance. And we're supposed to stop the party.
it is such a, I'm shocked to see that there's gambling.
They don't look too happy about it, Leo.
Oh, no, it ain't that, Tom. Jesus, Tom, we do as we're told.
Maybe they're right not to like it.
What I love about this is that it's almost, I'm going to say this in a weird way that's not accurate, but I'll say it anyway, which is that it's almost like we're establishing science fiction in the sense that this is how this universe works. In this universe, it is the mob boss is so powerful that it is just totally understood that the chief of police and the mayor work at his bidding and will do whatever they're told to do.
Yeah, and it's also a Western, right? When you have the villain who's in charge of the town telling the sheriff what they can and can't do, telling the mayor what he can and can't do, and what have you, you have that. So this is an age-old tradition back in those days. And look, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's coming back now, but back in those days where the person who was the criminal in power could tell other people what to do, and if they wanted to keep their jobs, they better do it. And of course, the public didn't get too wise to it all, or they might have rebelled against it. And so it just stays that way in how they do things. And again, this is part of what goes through Miller's Crossing is this questioning of the systemic things in our society. This is both the mayor and the chief of police doing Leo's bidding, who is a criminal and should actually be arrested and put in prison. But no, he is running the town and they want to keep their jobs. So they just kiss his ass. But Tom sees through them, which I think is great. It's a nice little twist in the scene that Tom sees that they're not happy about it, you know?
You know what I have to do? I have to really criticize my foolish and ridiculous science fiction statement by returning to what we talked about a little earlier and say, who's being naive, Kay? I mean, like the reality is, is that there are certain forms in which corruption takes, which is that if we saw, well, I don't even know if this is true anymore, but if you saw a lobbyist with a briefcase full of money walk up to a senator and open up the briefcase and say, vote for this thing, we would say, well, that's obviously corrupt. You can't do that. That's a bribe. But if you said the same lobbyist take that same senator on a vacation for the same amount of money, we just go, yeah, that's normal. Or the congressman or that senator, after he retires, get us a seat on the board of that lobbyist's company and get $100,000 speaking engagements. We go, well, that's just normal.
Yeah.
The reality is when people give money to run the system, and that's what happens, you know?
Money runs everything. We've been at times we've been deluded on the principles and the morality and all of that stuff. But the truth is, the more you live in this world, the more you realize how much money makes the world go around, how much money equals power in our system, in our society, for people who have no problem crossing lines or blurring the lines in how they do things. You know, a Supreme Court justice that takes multiple trips funded by a private citizen, and you're going to tell me they're not going to be swayed in voting? It's nonsense. You know, it's nonsense.
Well, and just to keep this on an even side, which we aren't always totally even, the son of a president making millions and millions of dollars, you know, off of his dad's name, you know?
Yeah, right. No, sure. Totally. Yes. 100%.
You can find this throughout our system.
Yes. Corruption does not know a party or a political affiliation. Yeah. It's very true.
And what's interesting in this movie is that what the chief of police and the mayor want is they just want everything to run smoothly.
Right.
And if everything runs, everything runs smoothly, we all make our money, nobody gets upset, people don't die.
Stirring up this hornet's nest won't be good for anyone, and it'll mean killing.
I'm not thrilled about it either, but I can't just lay down to Casper.
Of course, the reason he can't lay down for Casper is he believes that Rugg was killed by Casper because he wasn't letting Casper kill Bernie, which is not actually true.
You mightn't like it, but giving up Bernie Birnbaum is a pretty small price to pay for peace. Business is business, and a war's gonna hurt everybody. Bernie plays with fire, he's gotta deal with the consequences, even if that means he gets bumped off.
This is the system we're in. You know, this is the business we've chosen, you know?
Exactly. I didn't ask questions.
Yep.
But also, again, this is Tom willingly giving up Bernie, who is Verna's brother,
Yes.
in this situation to try to save Leo. And so no matter what you think about Tom, he is always trying to do what's best for Leo. And even by the end, the whole time he's been trying to do what's best for Leo because he does really care about him.
I completely agree, and that is how I read this too, but I have to point out the alternative explanation.
Yeah.
Tom is in love with Verna.
Sure.
Verna is sleeping with Leo. The only reason that she is sleeping with Leo is to keep Bernie alive.
Good point.
If Bernie is dead, she stops sleeping with Leo.
Yeah.
I don't think that's why Tom is doing what he's doing, but it is a perfectly valid explanation for his behavior.
It could be mixed in with the motivations. Absolutely. No doubt.
Well, and this is the other thing about humans. We don't always know why we're doing what we're doing. We often think we're doing something for this reason, and we're not acknowledging some other reason.
Yeah.
Sweet Jesus, Tom, that ain't even the point anymore. Casper poop rug. The day I backed down from a fight, Casper's welcome to the rackets, this town, and my place at the table. I didn't start
You
this
did
thing.
start. You and Verna.
And the mayor and the chief of police are not comfortable.
Yeah. No, because they don't like conflict. They don't like conflict. Yeah.
We don't want to see these mom and dad are fighting, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So they get
These
up
are
and they're
grown
like,
men that are older
Yeah.
than both of these guys, I think. And having the mayor stand up and go, "We can dangle, Leo, if you'd prefer."
Sit down, Dale. We're all friends here.
I've used that line my whole life since this movie.
Yeah.
Whenever there's a little bit of a disagreement or whatever, I'll just yell out, "Sit down, Dale. We're all friends here."
And Casper hasn't broken the rules. Bernie has, and you too by helping him. And if that isn't enough, consider that if you make this a war, you have more to lose than Casper.
Okay, but more to beat him with.
which I think is also pointing out that Tom sees Leo's weakness in a way that Leo is not willing to face.
Jesus, Tom. The two of us have faced worse odds.
Never without reason. It helps to have one.
I think that's one of the big differences between Tom and Leo.
Yeah.
Leo's just like, here's the obstacle. I must destroy the obstacle. It doesn't, that's what it is. And Tom's like, I'm never going to get in a fight unless I have a good reason to be in a fight.
Right. It has to make sense for me to do it before I do it.
Leo is upset and he's pacing, and Tom laughs and gets up and just goes, okay.
Well, it's your call. My opinion used to count for something around here, but it's always yours to take or leave.
Come on, Tommy. It's not like that.
And he heads out. This is a full passive-aggressive move.
Oh, yeah.
And
I love this line because he pounds his fist into the chair, frustrated, as if his wife is just like, this is a husband and wife fight, right?
Yeah.
Because the wife, I would say Tom is the wife. Tom comes in, wife has come in, and she's like, this is wrong what you're doing, you lunkhead. Like, think of this and think of this. And look, our kids aren't happy about it either. And so, you sit down, kids. And he's like, oh, and then she says, this is, well, fine. If you don't want to listen to me, that's fine. But you're doing something stupid, in my opinion, used to count, and walks on out. And Leo, like a husband, slams his fist into the chair and says,
Goddamn kids just like a twist.
A reference to a woman. So I think this is such an interesting and genius construction of their relationship throughout the whole film. Yeah, it's a bromance, but it does slide into that kind of husband-wife territory at times. And this is one of those scenes where it's very clear that that's an element of their back and forth. Because let me ask you, Steve, do you think Tom is legitimately upset or hurt by Leo not listening to him and walked out?
that is a great question.
Yeah.
Because my first instinct was like, yeah, of course he is. And then I went, I don't think so. I think maybe he's not just manipulating. It's just one more move. You know?
Is he playing Leo to walk out at him in this moment in front of O'Doul and the mayor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom heads over to the bar to see Tad, gets a stiff one.
That was small talk, huh? They shoot your horse?
If there's any justice.
I love that line.
Asks about Verna, who he hears in the ladies' room. He gets asked about the money he owes Lazarus, to which Tom replies,
He'll have to carry me for a few days.
He ain't gonna like that. Couldn't you get it from Leo?
What just occurred to me in this time of thinking this movie through for the 12th time, is I was like, oh, and maybe you said this already, but I didn't quite process it until now, which is gambling is Tom's Verna.
His weakness. Yeah.
Tom has this code.
Yeah.
And he's in perfect control of basically everything and everything you should do for a reason.
Yeah.
And you should never let some habit or desire of yours take away your power or your position, except Tom can't stop gambling.
No, and Tad, as I said earlier in this conversation, the bartender, Tad, they must have known each other before because they have a familiarity with each other. And Tad is the one that tells him from the opening scene that they're together to stop gambling, that, you know, you're losing money, you're getting yourself in trouble. And then this scene again that feeds what you just said. Here's Tad yet again, where Tom is coming down there swaggering, and Tad is taking the piss out of him. You know, they shoot your nag, and he said, "You got Lazar's 500. He's gonna have to carry. He's not gonna like that. Couldn't you get it from Leo? It's not Leo's debt. Oh, I admire a man of principle. Does this go on the tab? The free drinks you just took. So it's like these little things that you see. That Tad is the one consistently trying to get Tom out of the situation. And later in the film, Tad does something that no one else does but Tom. He puts his hands on Leo to stop him. And so I think Tad, Leo, and Tom kind of came up through the ranks.
Interesting.
But Tad is even more of a I'm going to watch from the sidelines guy than Tom. Tom took the decision to be Leo's second-hand man, and I think Tad was like, I'm just going to be the bartender where I observe everything, and I have information on everybody. This is my position, because he has a familiarity with Tom and Leo that no one else has in the movie. Maybe Verna, but only because she's sleeping with him. So there's a difference here. And so the fact that Tad can get away with saying these things to both Leo and Tom, I think speaks to a little bit of a familiarity between the guys from the past. And I like it because it's a nice element to have someone take down Tom. When Tom is taking down Leo, someone else is coming up right behind to take down Tom. And that keeps him kind of like relatable and gives more levels to the character of Tom that I think is genius in the construction of the script.
Here is a thing that I would love, and I think you would love too, and we will never get.
What's that?
And that is the Miller's Crossing prequel. Is how did Tom meet Leo? Like
series.
They're young guys. Oh my God, a series. And it's you start with like it's reform school, you know? They're young guys. Tom he just got off the boat. His parents died on the trip over from Ireland. Meets this tough kid Leo, and between the two of them, they create this empire. That's you talk about Boardwalk Empire a moment ago, and now I'm like, I am sold on the HBO limited series of Tom and Leo in this coming of age.
That's a great idea because you have you have Leo is probably already mixed up in the rackets.
Right.
But he hires both Tom and Tad to be like his guys underneath him. And then eventually the relationships develop. And then on the other side, we see the beginnings of Bernie and Verna and their relationship and how they get involved with this stuff. Make Eddie the Dane, the beginnings of Johnny Gaspar. I would love to see all of that. It would be amazing. Like Leo ascended past Johnny. Maybe they were the same kind of low-level guys, and Leo ascended past Johnny. It would be awesome to see that kind of stuff. And certainly Tom and Eddie and the Dane have probably had run-ins in the past themselves as well. You know, they each size each other up as formidable foes.
Because if the idea of The Godfather is that The Godfather has three sons, each of which has a part of his personality. You know, you have the strength in Sonny, the brilliance in Michael, and the heart in Fredo. Is that this is this other thing, which is that Leo has the toughness and the courage and all these characteristics, but he's lacking the one thing he needs, which is Tom. You know, and Tom couldn't do any of the things that Leo can do. You know. And they find each other. I'm sold. And again, 100%. This is obviously copyright 2025. The Cine-Files, with help from the Coen Brothers, will share credit with them.
Absolutely.
But we're ready to launch this series.
They could be technical advisors, but that's it.
We've heard that Verna is in the ladies' room, and that is where Tom heads next. And he barges in.
Close your eyes, ladies. I'm coming through.
And here is the thing that I never knew. And John, would you like to tell us who one of the characters in costume in the ladies' room are, because I never, ever would have guessed this.
Yes, this is something I discovered years ago, and I was shocked when I discovered it because I had seen the movie at least 1 million times before I read this fact. But if you look closely, one of the women standing up and storming out, dressed in like what looks to be an old maid's outfit is Albert Finney in drag. And he, according to the Coen Brothers in that interview, he begged them to let him dress in drag in that scene. And this speaks volumes to Albert Finney's, how can I say this, his impish nature, which always comes through when you watch him in interviews. He probably just came up with this idea on the fly and just pitched it to the Coens, and he got a hold of it and he just wouldn't let them go. And they probably were like, well, look, he asked, I mean, the fact we were to bring him in to play this lead at the last second and he stepped in to do it, how can we say no to the great Albert Finney? And he did it. And it's just such an odd thing to want to do in a movie, yet it's so perfect that it's so much fun to discover it when you discover it. So go back and watch the scene again. And as soon as he storms through, watch that kind of larger woman stand up, and that is Albert Finney, which is hilarious.
I just can imagine Joel and Ethan walk back to their trailer and just going, what are we going to do? Like, he's an amazing actor.
Yeah.
He came onto our movie at the last possible minute. He's killing it.
Yeah.
He wants to do what? In the what? What? Because when you don't want to, it doesn't. And what the reason that it's totally okay and totally works is you don't notice it. It doesn't draw attention to itself.
Again, seen it a million times. I'd never noticed it until I read it randomly in a breakdown of the movie. Yeah,
it's crazy. So all the ladies clear out except for Verna.
What the hell's the matter with you?
What's the matter with you? Afraid people might get the right idea?
Leo's got the right idea. I like him. He's honest and he's got a heart.
Then it's true what they say, opposites attract.
They have great old school. It's so funny because it doesn't exactly work, the old school movie dialogue in Hudsucker Proxy.
No, right.
And it 100% works here, you know?
Yeah, you're watching two really, really good actors. And not that Jennifer Jason Leigh and Tim Robbins aren't. I just think they were both horribly miscast in their roles. These two know how to chew this dialogue out so well. This is my favorite written scene in the movie. Because the back and forth between the two of them and what it ends up leading to is incredible. And the final shot, the final sexy shot of Verna is fantastic. And this is a scene I would teach in class. If I was to teach acting, I would teach this scene in class. It's so good.
To me, the difference in the performance style is Jennifer Jason Leigh and Tim Robbins are acting like they're in a movie.
Yes, good point. Yeah.
And these characters are just, this is how these characters act.
Yeah.
You know?
But, I mean, all stage guys, right? Like Gabriel Byrne and Marca Gay Harden off the stage, you know? So
Do me a favor, mind your own business.
This is my business. Intimidating helpless women is part of what I do.
And I love her response.
And find one an intimidator.
Which is great because she's saying, I'm not helpless. Like, I can't be. Well, and she's not. We see her in a lot of things that are scary in this movie.
Yeah.
She's not an easily intimidated person.
No. But to exist in this world that's so patriarchal, especially at this time, especially in the world of gangsters, and to hold her own and to be able to move her way to the point where she is sleeping with the top dog in the town, that takes a certain amount of strength and moxie. And to carry on an affair with his second in command takes a certain kind of strength and moxie as well to do this kind of stuff.
He's going to go to the mat for your brother, and it's going to hurt him.
I don't know Leo's business, but he's a big boy.
He used to be.
What's funny is, again, depending on how you break down Tom's motivations,
right?
He used to be a big boy could be applied to him.
Yes.
If he is doing all of this because of his feelings for Verna, he's committing the exact same mistake that Leo is.
Yeah.
Look, I'll do what I have to do to protect Bernie. There's no reason for you to try and queer that. Regardless of what you think about me, Bernie's a decent guy.
A straight shooter, huh? Square G.
The more we hear how decent a guy Bernie is, I think the more we anticipate that's not what it's going to be.
Sneer at him like everyone else. Just because he's different. People think he's a degenerate. People think he's scum. Well, he's not.
Poor misunderstood Ben.
So let's stop here because this is great. The opening is him plowing through, making a spectacle of himself because he is so immature with his emotions. A strong man waits outside, wait till she walks out, say, I got to talk to you. I don't. No. Tom is coming out of that meeting with Leo. He's hurt, as we believe. He's hurt that Leo didn't take his advice, So he comes downstairs. Tad gives him shit about the debt and the money he owes, takes his drinks, storms through the woman's bathroom, in essence, a powder room, whatever you want to say. They all run out and he goes right at her. And she doesn't move a muscle. Like she keeps on putting on her makeup and getting herself done. And they go back and forth about the whole situation with Bernie. And then just when he might get a little sneer or snicker or get a little leg up with the straight shooter passive aggressive shot, she comes back with a real emotion. Like, you sneered him like everyone else. Just because he's different, people think he's degenerate, people think he's scum. Well, he's not. So she does love her brother. She cares about her brother. So that shift, I think, is a great acting dramatic moment. It could have been played with anger. You know, you sneered him like everyone else just because he's different. Like, she could have easily done it. But no, she went internal to show the emotion of Verna in that moment and the love she has for her brother. And I think that's so essential to make us care for Verna as a person. Like, this could have been Kate and was it Beatrice and Benedict in what is the Love's Labor's Law? It could have been, right? Isn't that Much Ado About Nothing?
No, it's Much Ado. Yeah,
right. It could have been them in Much Ado. This could have been a Much Ado About Nothing type of thing. But there's more here because of how Verna is playing this role, this scene, and the way she is initially holding off all of Tom's anger. And she's seen Tom like this before. She knows how to play Tom in this moment. But then Tom goes a little farther about Bernie, and that's when she gets hurt by what he said. And then she turns it around on him, which we're about to see here in the next section of this scene, which I think is fantastic.
Well, and I think too, even before we get to that, is that we've already set up multiple anti-Semitic comments about Bernie. And so our first instinct, if we've watched lots of movies and we hear, oh, they hate him because he's Jewish, they're going after the Jewish guy, and we're naturally going to want to defend that. And then we have this sort of the next thing that has been hinted at and will get dealt with much more, which is that in addition to being Jewish, he's a homosexual. Yes. And so in this era, it was like, oh, well, he is the underprivileged outsider person that everybody's against. Yeah. Therefore, and she's saying he's not a bad guy. He's a good guy. And so our tendency is to side with Bernie, who we still haven't met, but the reality is she's entirely wrong. Bernie is a scumbag. He is a truly terrible person. It has nothing to do with him being Jewish or being gay. Bernie is a bad person. Her faith, I mean, I guess, again, we go to this blood is thicker than water, is that it's her brother. Yep. At what point do you stop defending your family when they're not good people,
Yeah. Well, it's not, they're both not good people, really, within this construct. Yeah.
Well, Verna, I mean, I would say, look, there's all sorts of not good people in this entire movie, but nobody compares to Bernie, to me.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. I'm just saying, like, it's a whole. Yeah, nobody's a good person in this movie. Everyone is dirty. Everyone has dirt.
Well, and it goes just what is the very beginning of the movie is ethics. Is that each one of these characters has a code of ethics that are different, and they're all in a flawed human way trying to follow their code. Yeah, Bernie has no code. Right, he is codeless. Yeah. Bernie's just cares about Bernie. Whereas Tom is caring about Leo. He says,
I want you to quit spinning Leo in circles and pointing him where to go.
I forgot that's your job, isn't it?
He could say, I want you to stop seeing Leo, which she would like because she wants him to admit that he loves her.
100%. The whole movie, he won't say trying to get him to admit that he loves her.
Well, and this is how much does Tom love Verna is an important question in the movie,
I'll do what I have to do to protect Leo. I'm asking you politely, leave him alone. I don't have to ask. If I told him about our little dance last night, your puller pretty soon dry up.
So would yours. I don't like being threatened.
And I don't like being taken for a sucker.
It's a great scene, man.
Yeah, great back and forth here.
Do you think last night was just more campaigning for my brother?
I can see the angles.
Was last night more campaigning for the brother?
It isn't. It's just he won't admit it. He won't admit that he has feelings for her. He won't admit that what's going on there between them is real. And him going to the angles thing is trying to make her say it. He's passive aggressive. Listen, let me tell you something. I know men as a man myself, and I know the bullshit men do and the craftily stupid ways they try to get women to admit their feelings before they say their feelings. And Tom, in a way, even though Verna's put it out on the table, why don't you just admit that you don't want me to see Leo? He doesn't even address that. He just says, I want you to stop turning him in circles, right? Pointing him where to go. doesn't even address that because he can't deal with it. He's not mature enough for all the greatness of Tom in this movie. Tom is an utter child when it comes to his emotions and his feelings for Verna because he can't admit it. And so him going like, well, doing this stuff and you're sleeping and all of this, and so she says to him, wait, you think I was sleeping with you for Bernie? And he goes, oh, I can see all the angles, blah, blah, blah. So these are the things like Verna is trying to talk sense. Tom, who has had a few drinks, is off in his own conspiracy world and everyone's against me and, or people are lying to me or whatever. I don't trust anybody, right? He's in that place. And so he doesn't have the ability to be honest with Verna. So the back and forths here are just great windows into both of their characters of the movie. And the only reason I say Verna's not a good person is because, she's tricking Leo for this thing to save her brother, which I don't think is a good way to go about doing things in my own personal opinion. But then again, I'm not a woman in the 1920s involved in a criminal underworld, so I don't know.
Well, I actually think it's a complicated question because is it correct to sleep with someone under false pretenses to manipulate them? No, that is not a good thing to do.
Right.
If your brother is about to be killed and the only way you can think of protecting him is to sleep with this person, it might be a heroic act, depending on how we look at the reality. The other thing, so I don't know if I've said this particular Steve Morris theory to you before, but you know how if you read like a fantasy novel, and in the fantasy novel there's the seer who can see the future. But if you ask the seer to see their own future, they go, the future is opaque. They can see your future, but they can't see their own future. Very, very common trope in a fantasy story, right? I think that is very, very true about humans in general. If you have a problem, John, and you come to me with your problem, I can very clearly see exactly what you should do. John, here's the obvious choice. Right. But if I have exactly the same problem, for some reason, it's very difficult for me to figure out what to do. Tom looks at Leo sleeping with Verna and goes, it is obvious she doesn't love you. Yeah. She's manipulating you in order to protect her brother. Right. Tom looks at himself sleeping with Verna and he cannot really understand what's happening. Yeah. He wants to believe that Verna actually cares about him, but he is convinced that she doesn't care about Leo. Yeah. Therefore, how can he feel comfortable or safe that she cares about him? His only way is to believe that she's playing an angle. And there isn't a way to see the difference. Like, I think that Verna does 100% care more for Tom than she does for Leo.
Yes.
But as the person who's sleeping with her, how can you tell? How can you be sure if you see her doing the other thing?
Right. Again, he wants her to do it.
Exactly.
He's not willing to do it himself by saying, I love you, stop seeing him. He wants her to do it for him. And that's the difference.
One way that would prove it is if she stopped sleeping with Leo, allowing her brother to die and continued to sleep with him after. Yeah. That would pretty much prove that she really does care about him more than Leo or her brother.
Right.
But she's not going to do that, Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And so he grabs her very forcibly.
I don't know if there was a market for little old ladies. You'd have Grandma Birnbaum first in line.
You're a pathetic rumhead.
And I love you, Angel.
And kisses her hard. It's a hard kiss.
Yeah.
So he said he loved her in this moment. And then she hauls off and slugs him. And he slides back and throws a glass at the mirror, which shatters.
So, real quick, do you think he was trying to hit her with the glass?
No.
With the glass?
No. Do you?
No. I think he was trying to intimidate her, and I don't think he has the balls to hit her with the glass. I don't think he has the stones to do it. And so he misses her on purpose, but for effect, it shatters against the mirror, which is a great shot. But I love this mini back and forth because he grabs her because he can't admit his feelings. So he grabs her physically because it's just that kind of thing. Some men are like so incapable of expressing emotion that the physicality of it all takes over, right? I'm not excusing him, I'm not explaining it in any way, shape, or form. But you see that, right? That whole like, I'm grabbing you and your grandma and this or that. And she insults him and he kisses her like just forcefully. And she fucking pushes him off and then socks him in the jaw. She is not someone to be disrespected in that way. You're not going to manhandle her and you're not going to force yourself on her without her permission. And so as much as Tom fights in a cerebral way, I think Verna has her own way of fighting back against situations like this. And she gives as good as she gets, and she's willing to take the punch if she's going to get punched for it, but she's going to be damned if she gets physically abused by anybody, and I love that as a show of strength from her in that moment with Tom. And Tom is so weak that he throws that glass. He's almost castrated by her in this moment because she doesn't return the kiss. Unless you call, but she does give him one in the kiss her. That's for sure.
I mean, this is the thing. Everybody talks about Tom being this. Yeah. Tom is a powerful character in this movie. Yeah. Tom is not physical. Tom does not throw down. Tom's entire response. We have like a couple of moments where he actually does something physical, but anytime he's really pushed, all Tom does is take a punch. Like that's all he does.
Right.
Is that he is not someone who's Verna is way more to go toe to toe physically with somebody than Tom is.
Right. And that's what I think is the genius about the writing of Tom in this movie, because he's essentially the Humphrey Bogart of this film.
Yeah.
But this is 1990, and we are much more aware of the gender dynamics and politics within our society than we've ever been before in 1990. Of course, I think we're much more aware of it now in 2025, but like in 1990. So the approach to a Humphrey Bogart type character would be different for 1990 audiences, even though you're placing it in the 1920s. So having all these people getting the best of your Humphrey Bogart character, but then still not undercutting how strong, important, intelligent, and wily he is, I think is an incredible tightrope act. And the Coen Brothers and Gabriel Byrne's performance does wonders to make that happen in this movie.
I will agree with everything you said, but I will add to it, which I haven't watched either of these movies in a while, but my memory of watching The Big Sleep and The Maltese Falcon, which obviously, these are movies that are very influential where we are now.
Yeah.
Humphrey Bogart spends the whole movie getting his ass kicked and not knowing what's going on. Both movies.
Oh, okay.
It's been a while since I've watched them, and it's what happens in Lebowski, because Big Lebowski is the same structure of he never knows what's going on. He's continually following the wrong thing and ending up in the wrong place. Yeah. Well, but if you watch Sam Spade, what Sam Spade is one, and what's the other character? Philip Marlowe.
Right.
Yeah. Both of those two characters, in one way or another, they're also always behind the eight ball trying to figure out what's going on some level.
Gotcha. Well, maybe he's just cooler in how he does it then I didn't think about that. But good point, Steve. I haven't seen those movies in a long time either. But
been a long time for me too. So
yeah. So
but that is my memory. It was funny too, because it's also Elliot Gould in The Long Goodbye.
Oh yeah,
is also Goodbye. And it's the same thing. It's you're scrambling along through these totally bizarre worlds, not really knowing what the fuck is going on for a long time, which is exactly Lebowski. And it's and this isn't a mystery in the same sense, but that being behind is definitely what's going on.
Yeah.
I love the next moment. So he throws the glass and she says,
I suppose you think you raised hell.
Sister, when I've raised hell, you'll know it.
That's a great line.
It is.
But the shot of her from low angle, I mean, this is like, let me just be honest. The shot of her from behind, her butt, like perfectly placed in the middle of the frame, sauntering, not rushing, not running, swaggering out that door from a place of power with the rest of her dress trailing behind. It is amazing. It's an amazing shot of her strength. And it's no coincidence that they shoot her from below so that you see her power and her magnificence as she's walking out of this scene, as Tom is like, leaning on one of the couches there in the middle of the room. It's great, but his delivery of his line is fantastic, and it's a harbinger of what's to come in the movie,
And as Verna exits the ladies' room, I think it's a good time for us to exit part one of our exploration of Miller's Crossing. Of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Are we going really slow? Yeah, we are, because there's so much here to chew on. I hope we've given you plenty of chew on, and if you have some thoughts, we'd love to hear them on our social media. You can do a search for the Cine-Files on Facebook. It's Cine_Files on X. The Cine-Files podcast on Instagram. You can subscribe to the show at Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Overcast or YouTube. Comments on Spotify and YouTube are always fun. Reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify are very, very useful. You can get our shorts and ad-free versions of the show by subscribing right through Apple Podcasts if you're an Apple person, or for even more benefits, you can go to patreon.com/thecine-files and you can buy or stream Miller's Crossing along with every other film we've ever reviewed on cinephiles.net. And you can reach me at SR Morris on Twitter, SR Morris1 on Instagram. John, how would they reach you?
You can always reach me at The Rocha Says on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and Blue Sky. The Outlaw Nation is my YouTube channel. Please come and subscribe. We just crossed 37,000. Would love to get us to 40,000 with all the great content we do there. The Geek Buddies, the Hot Mic, the Jedi Way, and all my reactions and live shows and trailer reactions as well, and reviews that are there on the channel would be great. Thank you so much. And this has been a blast, brother. I love that we're doing this movie. And already the first part has been such a joy to experience all over again, and to see what you're catching through it all as well. So it's a lot of fun. And I hope everyone thinks we've raised hell on this first part, because I'm excited to jump into the second part for sure.
Well, John, I mean, if you think the first part was fun, wait till you see when we come back for part 2 of Miller's Crossing right here on the Cine-Files.